the worlds of the heavens starting with Game of Thrones. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176 Curse. Xia Changqing's voice was not loud, but it was loud enough for the beings on the sea to hear his voice. The mermaids stopped attacking because they had discovered that Xia Changqing was different from the sailors they had met before. This was a very scary human being who had obtained the power of the gods, and even the sea had to obey his arrangements. After a brief silence on the sea, the mermaids quietly stretched their heads out and looked at the boat where Xia Changqing was. Just when Xia Changqing's patience was about to be exhausted, a figure that was very different from the other mermaids slowly floated up from the sea. It was the face of a girl with an extremely delicate face. She looked only in her 20s. Her beauty made the sea pale in comparison. Her long golden hair was scattered behind her head. From her sexy collarbone, 2 strands of golden hair hung down, covering the beautiful scenery in front of her chest. Even Xia Changqing had never seen such a beautiful girl before. It was a pity that the other party was a mermaid. Xia Changqing showed admiration in his eyes. If the other party was not so cold, she would be 3 points more beautiful. Let go of my people. I will forgive your sins, the mermaid girl said. Her voice was unusually cold, like the feeling of the surging waves of the sea, and when people heard it, it was like the refreshing feeling of drinking a mouthful of ice water in the hot summer. Before you tell me your request, do you want to introduce yourself first? Xia Changqing looked at the mermaid girl with a cold face with interest. Human, the one in front of you is the king of mermaids. The ship on the sea in the distance belongs to you, right? My people have surrounded it. Now, let go of the people you caught and leave White Wave Bay. You are not welcome here. The king of mermaids? Xia Changqing recalled carefully in his mind. In the original plot, there was no king of mermaids. But the threat from the other party was real. Xia Changqing clearly remembered that in the original plot, Barbossa came to White Wave Bay after Blackbird. Before he arrived, Blackbird had killed a large number of mermaids and captured one alive, so Barbossa and his group were identified as invaders. The angry mermaids directly overturned the warship from the British Empire, causing the entire crew on the ship to die tragically in the sea. Mermaid King, very good. It seems that you are the one in charge. We can talk with confidence. The conditions you proposed are not a big deal. I can release your people, but I need a tear from you mermaids. Of course, anyone's. Impossible. Human, don't even think about threatening us. Anger flashed across the face of the Mermaid King. She opened her mouth, revealing sharp fangs, and threatened Xia Changqing. I warn you again, release my people immediately. Xia Changqing shook his head helplessly. He also knew that it was impossible for the other party to agree to his conditions in such a calm negotiation. In the final analysis, it still depends on strength. Mermaid King, a tear is my minimum requirement. If you don't even agree to this condition, then I will have to take it myself. Xia Changqing said as he urged the magic power in his body. The sea water around the boat boiled again. At the same time, the mermaids in this sea area felt that they began to feel dizzy and their energy was quickly leaving them. I feel so uncomfortable. What happened? Evil witchcraft. This is the evil witchcraft of human wizards. Large groups of cries rang out one after another. The effect of the curse was very fast. In a short period of time, the mermaids had already experienced the pain brought by the curse. Of course, this feeling, which is like a serious illness in humans, will make people feel very powerless, but it will not easily kill them. But the mermaids didn't know this. The sudden curse made them panic unconsciously. The Mermaid King was not spared either. She frowned, as if she wanted her own strength to stop the spread of the strange feeling in her body. However, this was in vain. After clearly feeling that he was getting weaker and weaker, the Mermaid King finally showed a look of shock and anger on his face. Despicable human, what have you done to us? Xia Changqing was very happy to see this scene happen. He showed a big villain smile on his mouth. It's obvious. I have cast a curse on you. If you agree to my conditions, I will remove the curse for you. Otherwise, what else? You will gradually die in pain and wailing. After death, your soul will be difficult to be freed. You will be tortured for eternity. King of mermaids, think about it. Which is more important, tears or the lives of you and your people? Xia Changqing used an aria-like tone to exaggerate the effect of the curse. When he saw the fear and panic on the beautiful face of the Mermaid King, he actually felt a faint sense of satisfaction in his heart. This feeling of bullying a little girl is quite good. Wait. Xia Changqing quickly shook his head secretly, shaking out the thought of expressing his opinion. He was not that kind of person. In fact, not only the mermaids were full of fear of Xia Changqing, even Jack and Barbossa wanted to hug each other tremblingly at this moment. Xia Changqing looked like a villain. In the sea, the mermaids seemed to be shocked by the scene described by Xia Changqing, and they did not move for a long time. So Xia Changqing said in an impatient tone, "How long do you want to consider? Or are you planning to use the lives of all your tribesmen to bet whether what I said is true? I will only give you 10 seconds to consider. When the time is up, I will take the initiative to activate the curse." Xia Changqing said coldly, and he began to count. 10, 9. The countdown had just begun, and the Mermaid King could not swim anymore. She hurriedly interrupted Xia Changqing. "Wait, I can agree to your request, but you must promise that after I give you the tears, you will lift the curse for us." "No problem." Xia Changqing agreed readily. "After all, I'm not a bad person." "Mermaid King, you swear?" "Okay, I swear, in the name of Poseidon, the god of the sea, after the mermaids give me the mermaid tears I want, I will lift the curse for them." Xia Changqing said with a very serious face and very sincerely. "Poseidon? Who knows who he is?" Chapter 177 Mermaid's Tears. Xia Changqing didn't just swear in the name of Poseidon. You know, there are gods in this world. Maybe you just say the name of a god, and this god exists. Then he is very free and just happened to witness your oath. So swearing in the name of a god is not a joke, especially for an existence like Poseidon. However, Xia Changqing is very sure that this great existence called Poseidon has completely fallen. Even if he has not fallen, his divine power must have dropped a lot. No matter what, he will not have time to care about his oath. Because if Xia Changqing remembers correctly, more than 10 years later, Barbossa's daughter will take Jack to find Poseidon's tomb and find the artifact trident there. Poseidon can't even take care of the destruction of his own artifact, so Xia Changqing dares to swear in his name. As expected by Xia Changqing, Poseidon, the god of the sea, has great prestige among mermaids. After Xia Changqing swore in his name, all the mermaids showed a look of relief. "Human, you must remember your oath. If you dare to break your oath, the great god of the sea, Poseidon, will let you know the consequences of daring to deceive the ocean." "Okay, don't worry, I will not break my oath," Xia Changqing said solemnly. The Mermaid King nodded with satisfaction, and then she showed a troubled expression again. "We mermaids live in the seabed, and don't have tools to store tears. You have to prepare them yourself." Xia Changqing grinned, and he turned to look at Jack. "Mr. Sparrow, where is the glass bottle I asked you to prepare in advance? Now is the time to use it." Jack heard this, and took out the small glass bottle from his arms in surprise. Fortunately, it was not broken, and Jack breathed a sigh of relief. He originally thought that Xia Changqing asked him to prepare this thing, which would not have any effect, and he didn't pay attention to the storage at all. However, it was unexpected that things would go so smoothly, or it could be said that Xia Changqing's ability was too strange, and he could actually curse others. Jack was already thinking about staying away from Xia Changqing in the future. Now that the glass bottle was also available, the Mermaid King could not find any reason to refuse. She looked around and found that her people were all looking at her eagerly. The Mermaid King, who was the same age as the 16-year-old human girl, sighed helplessly. In the end, she took it all by herself. She slowly swam to the side of the boat. This time, there was no barrier to stop her progress, allowing the little mermaid to reach the side of the boat very smoothly. Taking the small glass bottle from Xia Changqing, the little mermaid even slashed him fiercely. Xia Changqing just smiled indifferently. This Mermaid King still had the mind of a girl. In Xia Changqing's opinion, this was still a little cute. The process of taking tears was extremely difficult. I don't know if it was because mermaids were born with difficulty in shedding tears. It seemed harder than climbing to the sky to squeeze out a tear from their eyes. Seeing the Mermaid King and the glass bottle glaring at each other, Xia Changqing just wanted to pat his forehead helplessly. If you can't squeeze out tears, think more about your people. Think about them being tortured by the curse, their skin festering, their scales falling off, and falling into painful wails. But this will not make them die immediately. The pain is still tormenting them. Shut up. You are not a human being at all, but a devil in human skin. The mermaid stared at Xia Changqing with a pair of crystal-like eyes. At the same time, Jack nodded in agreement. Xia Changqing noticed Jack's actions and looked at him dangerously, which made Jack turn his head away immediately, as if nothing had happened, not daring to look at Xia Changqing. I just want you to immerse yourself in pain. Imagine such a scene. Don't you want to cry? You can't cause the pain in my heart at all. It will only make me hate you more. The Mermaid King said angrily. Okay, then you can recall what made you sad or happy. Do you want me to tell you a joke? No need. The Mermaid King gritted his teeth and said. At this moment, a crystal tear slid down from the corner of her eye. Quick, it's out. Xia Changqing shouted excitedly. The sudden movement frightened the little mermaid so much that her hand trembled, and the mouth of the glass bottle was not aimed at the tear. Several people stared at it intently. The tear passed across the little mermaid's cheek and was about to merge into the seawater. Xia Changqing was quick-witted and a shadow was waved by him under the little mermaid's cheek, successfully covering the tear. It's okay, it's okay. Xia Changqing breathed a sigh of relief, then snatched the glass bottle from the little mermaid and carefully put the tear in it. It's too dangerous. Xia Changqing put the glass bottle into his arms. It's better to keep such an important thing by himself. The little mermaid was very surprised by Xia Changqing's method of catching tears, but she immediately remembered her identity. The curiosity on her face flashed away, and the face of the little mermaid king returned to coldness. She glanced at her people lying on the boat, still unconscious, and her chest rose and fell violently. Jack's strength was too great. After such a long time, the captured mermaid still showed no signs of waking up. Human, I have done what I promised you, and you should also fulfill your promise. The little mermaid king said coldly. Xia Changqing smiled comfortably. Don't worry, I won't go back on my word. Mr. Sparrow, what are you waiting for? Why don't you send the respected mermaid back to the sea? Jack had a motherfuck in his heart and didn't know whether to say it or not. Without your order, do I dare to act on my own? But the reality is so cruel. The leader opens his mouth and the employees run themselves to death. Jack and Barbossa worked together to throw the captured mermaid back into the sea. Xia Changqing saw that the expression of the little mermaid king eased a little and then glared at him again. He knew what the little mermaid was thinking, so Xia Changqing closed his eyes, chanted something in his mouth in a proper manner, and made a convulsion-like gesture. After a moment, he opened his eyes again and grinned at the little mermaid king. Okay, the curse has been lifted by me. You can rest assured now. Chapter 178 Wizard. With the warm farewell of the mermaids, Xia Changqing and his party left Bailang Bay. If there was nothing to do, it would be a good thing to stay here and have a deep exchange with the mermaids. Look, those mermaids shed tears of reluctance when they saw us leave. It's so touching. This kind of lying with open eyes is worthy of you, Jack. The journey does not stop, and the funny things do not stop. Where Jack is, there is always laughter. Even a depressing journey becomes interesting. After getting the mermaid's tears, the next goal is Juan Ponstelian's silver cup. The group abandoned the ship and went ashore. After another week of moving on land, they finally stood on the edge of a cliff. Juan Ponstelian and his ship are below here. Captain, how do we get down? This is a problem. Jack pointed to the bottom of the cliff and said, and under his guidance, everyone cast their eyes to the bottom of the cliff. Indistinctly, there seemed to be a huge ship lying under the cliff, covered with various plants, and its overall appearance was hidden in it. Jack, this kind of adventure requires you, a person with full luck points, to take action. Xia Changqing said to Jack with a smile. To be honest, as a protagonist of this generation in this world, Jack is really born with full luck attributes, and he is the kind of person who can turn danger into fortune. Captain, Don't talk nonsense, I can't do it. But I can recommend someone to you, Mr. Hector Barbossa. He has been sailing on the sea for so many years, and he has seen all kinds of storms. This kind of trivial matter is not difficult for him. Jack hurriedly declined, and then he dragged Barbossa into the water unkindly. Jack, you are such a bastard. Barbossa gave him the most fair and sincere evaluation. Jack didn't take it as a problem, and accepted the evaluation with a smile. Thank you for your compliment. Okay, Jack. Your suggestion is very good. Then let Mr. Barbossa go with you. The two of you will work together to find Juan Ponstelian's silver cup. Xia Changqing looked at Jack and Barbossa with sad faces, thought about it, and separated a trace of shadow power. Don't worry, I will ensure your safety. Xia Changqing comforted, and at the same time, two shadows stretched out from Xia Changqing's sleeves and directly wrapped around Jack and Barbossa's waists. Anyway, he has already demonstrated the power of his curse, and his identity as a wizard is no longer a secret in the eyes of Jack and others. In this situation, there is no need to hide it, so it is better to give Jack and the others some confidence. However, Xia Changqing did not deceive the two people. The two shadows he separated can indeed pull them when they are about to fall off the cliff. The sight of the shadows coming to life still made Jack and Barbossa feel terrified, but they had no right to refuse, and could only let the two shadows wrap around their waists. Captain, you promise that these shadows will not break. Even if they do, you must first break Barbossa's. Jack touched the shadow belt around his waist with his hand, and it was slippery, and he couldn't control it at all, which made Jack even more worried. Jack, shut up. Why are you talking so much? Barbossa looked at Jack impatiently, and after seeing that Jack was still chattering, Barbossa finally couldn't help but kick Jack off the cliff. Jack's resentful screams came intermittently from the bottom of the cliff, but he looked full of energy and didn't look like he was in danger. Seeing this, Barbossa no longer hesitated and jumped directly from the top of the cliff. Juan Ponstelian's ship was inserted horizontally on the cliff. As long as the two found the right foothold, they could board the ship smoothly. However, Xia Changqing remembered that the ship was already in a precarious situation. If they were not careful, they might fall. As Jack and Barbossa fell further, the shadow rope tied between them quickly faded, but there was no sign of breaking. Elizabeth stood beside Xia Changqing. She looked at the shadow sticking out from Xia Changqing's sleeve with a curious look. After observing for a while, she directly started poking here and there with her fingers. Xia Changqing glanced at Elizabeth lightly and did not stop her childish behavior. However, this did not mean that Elizabeth would let Xia Changqing go. Xia, what on earth is this? Is it really a shadow? Elizabeth asked excitedly, as if she had discovered a new world. Of course it's a shadow. A black shadow emerged from Xia Changqing's fingers, transformed into a little snake, and looked at Elizabeth curiously. The cute look of the little shadow snake directly touched Elizabeth's heart. So cute, she exclaimed, and couldn't help but touch the little shadow snake with her fingers. Under Xia Changqing's control, the little shadow snake seemed to be shy and shrank back directly. Before Elizabeth could show her disappointed expression, the little shadow snake poked its head out again. This time, it had changed its appearance. It had sharp horns on its head and claws under its belly. It looked like an oriental dragon. Elizabeth exclaimed that it was interesting and had a lot of fun playing with the flying shadow. Xia, what is your ability? Can you teach me? Elizabeth asked happily. Xia Changqing smiled and shook his head and took the shadow back. He didn't care about Elizabeth's disappointed look. Elizabeth, it's not that I don't want to teach you, but this kind of ability is not something you can learn just by wanting to learn. Although saying this would hurt Elizabeth's heart, there was no way. The ability to control shadows was not like other witchcraft that could be acquired through practice. Oh, Elizabeth responded, and her tone could not hide her disappointment. But you don't have to be disappointed. Xia Changqing touched Elizabeth's hair with his hand. Do you want to be a wizard? As long as you are not afraid, I can tell you how to become a wizard. Wizard? Elizabeth was tempted for a moment, but the secular prejudice against wizards made her feel a little scared. In this world, it is not only pirates who are caught and hanged, but also people who are considered witches. Although there are mysterious things in this world, there are only a few people who can obtain extraordinary powers. Most of the so-called witches who were hanged and burned to death are ordinary people. But this cruel behavior also shows that ordinary people hate mysterious powers. So Elizabeth was a little hesitant about becoming a wizard. Chapter 179 Time Tests Truth. No matter what Elizabeth's choice is, Xia Changqing will respect it. In fact, he also wants to see what kind of changes will happen to the world if he trains Elizabeth to be a witch. But this matter ultimately depends on Elizabeth's own choice. Just as Elizabeth was lost in thought, Xia Changqing felt the movement from the shadow rope. This was Jack and Barbossa giving him feedback. Xia Changqing leaned out and looked down the cliff. The dilapidated ship that had been quietly staying halfway up the cliff was shaking violently at this time, and the hanging end was slowly shifting towards the direction of the cliff. He knew it. Xia Changqing sighed helplessly. It was impossible for Jack not to cause trouble when he took action. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing began to retract the shadow that had become extremely faint. As a result, Jack and Barbossa were caught from the bottom of the cliff like fish. Ouch. Jack got up from the ground and held his waist with an exaggerated expression. Captain, you didn't say to be gentle. My waist is about to break. Xia Changqing glanced at Jack and immediately shifted his gaze to the two silver cups that fell on the ground. He bent down to pick up the silver cups from the ground and used his magic to sense them with some curiosity. To his surprise, in his magic, they were just two ordinary silver cups. So what about the ritual of the Fountain of Youth? Xia Changqing was full of doubts, but he didn't intend to get to the bottom of the problem. Since the ritual required these two cups instead of ordinary cups, then use them. After putting away the two silver cups, they only had one last destination, which was the location of the Fountain of Youth. The process of finding the location of the Fountain of Youth was unusually smooth. After all, Xia Changqing and his team acted alone, and there was no other force to interfere. Jack's compass guided the team in the most correct direction, and led the team to a cave. Looking at the empty cave, Jack was a little irritated. The Fountain of Youth is clearly here. Is there something wrong? Jack, I only see a bare cave, and I don't see any trace of the Fountain of Youth. Did you deliberately take the wrong way? Barbossa looked at Jack with a sidelong glance and smiled maliciously. Impossible. Jack jumped up and looked at Barbossa angrily. Xia Changqing didn't know whether to cry or laugh about these two happy enemies who would quarrel when they encountered a little problem. Xia Changqing threw two silver cups to Jack. Use your intelligence and you will find the answer. We feel that the Fountain of Youth is in this place. Jack was puzzled at first, and then he immediately thought of something, grabbed the two silver cups, and searched carefully. It should be said that Jack is worthy of being the destined protagonist. After a moment, he discovered the secret of the silver cup. The inscription engraved on the silver cup is the formula to the Fountain of Youth. When Jack unconsciously read the inscription on the silver cup, a stream of water appeared out of thin air from the cave. Xia Changqing signaled to everyone not to panic. When the water flow gathered more and quickly spread throughout the cave, Xia Changqing and his party were teleported to a new place. This was a closed space, and it seemed to be the depths of a cave. The water was gurgling and extremely quiet. It was a place that humans had not set foot on for a long time. After only 7 or 8 steps forward, everyone saw an altar. On the stone altar, drops of spring water dripped down and then gathered into the stream under their feet. The Fountain of Youth. Everyone cheered. After going through untold hardships, they finally saw the legendary existence. Is this the Fountain of Youth? It looks like ordinary spring water. Does this thing really have the ability to make people immortal? Jack leaned under the altar and stared at the Fountain of Youth dripping down drop by drop. Of course not. Xia Changqing once again dispelled Jack's idea. Even if it is a god, it is impossible to be immortal, let alone immortal. If the Fountain of Youth really has this effect, it would not be our turn to discover it, and it would have been taken by the gods long ago. Xia Changqing picked up 2 silver cups and placed them under the altar, watching the Fountain of Youth drop by drop into the silver cups, gradually gathering into a small cup. The Fountain of Youth can make people stay young forever. Just need a ceremony. As long as the ceremony is correct, the amount of spring water is not important at all. Xia Changqing carefully took out the glass bottle containing the mermaid's tears from his arms, dripped it into a silver cup, and then he handed the silver cup to Elizabeth. "Take it, Elizabeth. This is my last gift to you." Elizabeth was just immersed in shock and didn't notice the meaning of Xia Changqing's words at all. "Xia, give it to me. Such a valuable thing. You should use it yourself." Elizabeth directly declined. Xia Changqing's eyes were full of smiles. "I found the fountain of youth so that you can stay young forever. Have you forgotten? I'm a wizard, and the life of a wizard is not comparable to that of an ordinary person." After Xia Changqing explained with a smile, Elizabeth still took the silver cup from his hand. There was no way. The effect of eternal youth was too tempting, and Elizabeth could not refuse it at all. After Elizabeth drank the fountain of youth with mermaid tears, the prisoner who was brought along all the way had a place to use. This was a prisoner who was sentenced to death in royal port, and now it was just in time to play a role. The ritual of the fountain of youth said that it would take the life of another person, but it did not say how. So when the prisoner was forced to drink the fountain of youth, everyone saw a scene that shocked them. The fountain of youth, which had been a trend of drops, suddenly surged out from the ground, like a tsunami on the sea, washing over the prisoner. A tornado composed of water tightly wrapped around the prisoner, washing away his flesh and blood bit by bit, and in the blink of an eye, a strong man turned into a skeleton. This horrifying scene still made everyone shudder. Xia Changqing didn't feel anything special, he just looked at Elizabeth with concern. "Elizabeth, how are you? How do you feel?" Elizabeth was also full of doubts. She touched all parts of her body with her hands, and finally said puzzledly, "I don't feel anything. This fountain of youth can't be fake." Xia Changqing thought, the fountain of youth must not be fake. The fate of the prisoners is obvious to all. But what effect does the fountain of youth have? It may need to be tested over time. Chapter 180 Far East. The matter of the fountain of youth came to an end, and then everyone set off to return to Port Royal. Whether the fountain of youth is effective or not is still under discussion, but Xia Changqing's mission in this world has been completed, and he sighed that it was time to leave this world. Just when Xia Changqing was about to arrange all affairs and leave this world quietly, he suddenly heard news from the country, called Daking in the East. This was just a casual chat between two guards, but Xia Changqing heard it. To be honest, the Caribbean Sea is not known how far away from Daking in the East, and he did not expect to hear news about Daking here. Thinking of this dynasty that brought 100 years of shame to the ancient eastern country, Xia Changqing suddenly had the urge to go to the east to take a look. As a person who is a descendant of Yan Huang from the bottom of his heart, now that he has the conditions, he certainly wants to go back to his hometown to take a look. After wandering for so long, the continent of Westeros and the world of demon hunters are simply different worlds, and the world of Blood Clan and Spartacus does not have the conditions to return to the east. Now, Xia Changqing has taken control of the entire Caribbean Sea and has become the real king of the Caribbean Sea. He is fully qualified to go to the east. In fact, Xia Changqing still has a little idea in his mind. Since he has changed the development history of the Caribbean Sea, he wonders if he will have the opportunity to change the history of that eastern country. When Xia Changqing talked about this plan, Jack and others didn't know whether to oppose or support it. After all, they knew too little about that eastern country. Xia Changqing was a little discouraged when he saw Jack and others didn't know anything. In fact, Jack and others were also very aggrieved. "You, Xia Changqing, are a real Oriental. If you want to talk about the understanding of the eastern country, don't you know it best?" Xia Changqing was speechless when asked. His question was really not very good. He asked the wrong person. However, Jack was the first to support Xia Changqing's plan to go to the east. Jack is a person who can't sit still. As long as he can take risks, he doesn't care where to go. Xia Changqing looked at Jack and smiled with satisfaction. He knew that Jack would be someone who supported him. With his understanding of Jack, as long as he could take risks on the sea, Jack would dare to go through mountains of swords and seas of fire. With Jack's support, things would be much easier. After a few months of repairs in Royal Port, the Black Pearl had the opportunity to set sail again. The distance from Royal Port to Daking was too far, and the speed of the Black Pearl was necessary. The ocean is an undeveloped treasure land, and it is also an unknown land full of dangers. Sailing on the sea requires facing all kinds of dangers. Fortunately, both Jack and Barbossa are experienced navigators. The Black Pearl is also a large battleship that has been tested and stormed. Swaying, the Black Pearl passed through the waters of Southeast Asia and headed all the way to Daking. After a few more months, the Black Pearl had approached the territory of Daking, but there was a very serious problem that was placed on Xia Changqing, Jack and others. They were lost. Jack wanted to cry, but had no tears. Although his compass was magical, he also had to have a clear goal. Without a clear goal, the compass was a waste. "Captain, this is your hometown. Don't you know where we are now?" Jack looked at Xia Changqing with suspicion, suspecting that he was a fake Oriental. Xia Changqing was also a little embarrassed about this. Before he traveled through the heavens, he lived inland all year round. The information about the sea around the entire country was at most known through maps. Now that he is really in it, he is also a muggle. "Captain, a ship is found ahead." At this time, the lookout suddenly sent a message. Xia Changqing and Jack and others looked at each other, and they all saw the meaning of surprise in their eyes. This is really a pillow for someone to send when you are sleepy. You must know that in Daking, the detection is implemented in a closed door manner. It is simply a pie in the sky to meet a ship on the sea. I just don't know if the people on this ship are from Daking. Xia Changqing took the lead and came to the bow. He squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. He saw an ordinary sloop coming towards him without any flags indicating his identity. Xia Changqing was very surprised. He immediately turned to Jack and said, "Push out the cannons and force the ship on the opposite side to stop. Our guide is here." Xia Changqing did not have the feeling of tears when meeting a fellow villager of this era. Who knows whether the crew on that ship is Han or Manchu. Jack listened to the order and immediately went to make arrangements. The flag of the Royal Navy was raised. Their identity outside was not pirates. On the civilian ship that Xia Changqing was staring at, some crew members also discovered the actions of the Black Pearl. Under the situation that the Black Pearl did not cover up at all, anyone could see that the other party's target was him. "Chief, there is a strange ship coming from the opposite side. The flag they are flying is a little strange. The other party seems to want to force us to stop." "Strange ship? Who is the other party?" The man called the chief is a middle-aged man. He has a firm face and a straight body. Standing there, he is like a sharp sword, but his whole person is like a warm and kind elder. After hearing the report from his subordinates, the chief leader immediately ordered, "Let the brothers wake up a little. Since the other side wants to stop us, let's stop and see what the other side's purpose is." As he spoke, the chief leader picked up the sword standing on the table, lifted the hem of his robe with his right hand, and walked out of the house. At the first sight of the Black Pearl, a trace of shock flashed in the chief leader's eyes. He had deep internal strength and excellent eyesight, and he had already seen the neatly arranged cannons on the Black Pearl. The black muzzle made the chief leader's scalp tingle. He had seen red cannons before, but the appearance of so many guns at the same time still made him feel a little scared. Did he meet someone from the court? The chief leader's mind flashed this thought at the first time, but it was not right. He overturned this idea himself. The flags hanging on the other side's ship were of a type he had never seen before. Fortunately, the other side did not show an attitude of attacking at the first time, which meant that there was still room for maneuver. For a while, the chief leader's mind was in turmoil, thinking about when Daking had such a powerful force. A force that can own such a huge treasure ship should not be unknown. Chapter 181 Chenjinan. Under the Black Pearl's deliberate obstruction, the other side also very sensibly lowered the sail and stopped the ship. When they got closer, everyone could clearly see that the other side's ship was much smaller than the Black Pearl, and the side of the other side's ship was only half the height of the Black Pearl's hull. Xia Changqing stretched his head at the bow and looked at the other side's ship. When he saw the group of men wearing tight clothes and rat-tail hairstyles on the deck, Xia Changqing knew that he had found the right person. As for the postures of the other side holding swords, Xia Changqing automatically ignored them. Nowadays, who doesn't carry a sword when walking on the sea? Just looking at the rat-tail hairstyle made Xia Changqing feel uncomfortable. This hairstyle was too ugly. While Xia Changqing was observing the other side, the middle-aged man called the chief helmsman was also observing Xia Changqing. When the chief helmsman saw the sparse and short hair on Xia Changqing's head, he was shocked and couldn't help but feel happy. Since taking entered the Central Plains, all Han people have been required to keep this kind of rat tail hair. The so-called keeping hair means losing life. Even the heroes of their Xianda who had to obey this law in order to better realize their ambition of overthrowing King and restoring Ming, so as to make it easier for them to act. Unexpectedly, he was lucky enough to meet a hero who still kept his hair today. Even though Xia Changqing looked unusually young, the chief leader was still willing to call him a hero. Who is the friend on the boat? I'm Chen Jinan from Xiandahu. Chen Jinan didn't know that the moment he reported his name, Xia Changqing couldn't help but take a breath. If the name Chen Jinan didn't mean anything, then when it was connected with Xiandahu, the answer was obvious. Because there was only one person who could be called Chen Jinan of Xiandahu. What kind of world had he come to? A hodgepodge. Xia Changqing couldn't help but have the urge to hold his forehead. This surprise was really too big. When Chen Jinan saw that Xia Changqing had not answered for a long time, he was a little hesitant in his heart, and he was even more suspicious of Xia Changqing's identity. He had directly introduced himself because of Xia Changqing's hairstyle. Now that the other party had not answered for a long time, could it be that he had a grudge against the Xiandahu? Fortunately, Xia Changqing quickly came to his senses. He shouted to the boat, I have heard of the name of Master Chen for a long time. Please come on board. After hearing Xia Changqing's shout, Chen Jinan was also a little hesitant. How could others feel at ease to go directly to your boat when you didn't even announce your home? Master, you can't do that. The other party's identity is unknown. You can't take risks in person. Sure enough, without Chen Jinan mentioning it himself, the people under the Xiandahu had already stood up to stop him. However, Chen Jinan was a skilled and courageous person after all, and his first impression of Xia Changqing with short hair was too good. After a brief hesitation, he decided to agree. If the other party is also an anti-king hero, then he is a worthy target to win over. Just based on the other party's tall ship and sharp artillery, it is worth his risk. I know my limits, don't stop me. Chen Jinan waved his hand and said, then I will go with the chief leader. If the other party has ill intentions, we can also have a response. Another subordinate said immediately, that's right chief leader, I will go too. Chief leader, take me with you. Chen Jinan was moved. With such a group of righteous men in the world, there is no need to worry about the anti-king cause. Of course, he can't take everyone with him. This is unrealistic. On this side, Xia Changqing has ordered the rope to be handed down from the Black Pearl. At that moment, Chen Jinan no longer hesitated and selected two subordinates with outstanding martial arts. Then Chen Jinan took advantage of the side of the ship and rose up directly. He stepped on the hull of the Black Pearl several times, and in the blink of an eye, he had reached half the distance. After that, Chen Jinan took advantage of the hanging rope again, and this time he landed on the deck of the Black Pearl like a rock spreading its wings. Good martial arts. Xia Changqing praised. If he was not mistaken, Chen Jinan should be using King Gang. Xia Changqing's eyes were shining. This is King Gang. I don't know if Chen Jinan has internal strength, white clothes fluttering, swordsmanship and traveling around the world, but this is Xia Changqing's dream since childhood. But reality has led him to the wrong path of witchcraft. Now there is a chance to set things right, and Xia Changqing vows to seize this opportunity. Chen Jinan didn't care much about Xia Changqing's praise, because when he saw everything on the ship clearly, he was so surprised that when he landed, his body was a little unstable, and he almost stumbled. A boat full of red-haired ghosts. Chen Jinan's eyesight was very good. He was not wrong. Except for the young man who was talking to him, all the people on this ship were red-haired ghosts. Well, in the eyes of Chen Jinan and others, anyone with a strange appearance was called a red-haired ghost, a Rakshasa ghost, or something like that. I don't know why Western faces can be associated with ghosts. At the same time, Chen Jinan had a sudden realization. No wonder he had never seen such a huge ship and so many red-coated cannons. If this was a red-haired ghost ship, it would not be surprising. But why would Xia Changqing, a young man, be mixed in with a group of red-haired ghosts? This was also what Chen Jinan found strange. Following Chen Jinan, the two heroes of the Xiandahu also boarded the Black Pearl. After the two saw the British Navy full of ships, they were stunned for a moment, but immediately drew their swords, as if they were facing a great enemy. Drawing a sword here was equivalent to releasing a dangerous signal. Jack and Barbossa also drew their rapiers at their waists without hesitation. Then, all the crew members pointed their muskets at Chen Jinan and the other two. Chen Jinan knew something about muskets. With his martial arts, he would not take 2 or 3 muskets at once. But now there were dozens of muskets pointed at him at the same time. It would be a lie to say that he was not nervous. These things happened in just a moment, and Xia Changqing was caught off guard. "Put down your guns." Xia Changqing turned around and said in English, looking at Jack and Barbossa's hesitant eyes. Xia Changqing glared at them fiercely. The crew members obeyed the order and turned their guns away. Chen Jinan looked at this scene and began to guess Xia Changqing's identity in his heart. Then he signaled his 2 men to put away their swords. Facing so many muskets, it would be useless, even if they drew their swords. Chapter 182, A Pleasant Conversation. On the Black Pearl, both sides put down their weapons, and the tense atmosphere was finally relieved. Xia Changqing stepped forward and saluted by clasping his fists, imitating the way martial artists in his impression greeted each other. "Chief Chen, I have long heard of your great name. I'm Xia Changqing, who has lived overseas for a long time. I have also heard of your great reputation. Today, I meet you, and you are indeed extraordinary. So that's it." Chen Jinan's face showed a look of sudden realization. In this case, it can be said that the other party's crew is a ship of red-haired devils. It turns out to be Brother Xia. "Nice to meet you." Chen Jinan clasped his fists in a chic manner. "I wonder what Brother Xia can do to stop my ship?" To be honest, Xia Changqing was really not used to this kind of literary way of speaking, but when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Seeing this, Xia Changqing would only return the greeting in a serious manner. "Master Chen, I'm presumptuous to stop your boat, because I have never been here before. I don't know when and where this is. I hope Master Chen can help me solve my doubts." Xia Changqing showed a trace of embarrassment on his face at the right time, but he did not lie. He had indeed never been to the territory of Daking. At the same time, all kinds of thoughts were flowing through Chen Jinan's mind. Judging from the posture of this young man, he must have a huge power overseas. The Xiandahu is now in need of all kinds of people to join the great cause of overthrowing King and restoring Ming. Is it possible for him to trick the other party into joining the Xiandahu? When he thought of this possibility, Chen Jinan's heart was faintly excited. Although he was a martial arts expert, he was also envious when he saw the ship full of artillery. After all, even in the Xiandahu, there are very few people like him who have martial arts skills. Ordinary members are just relying on their enthusiasm. In Daking, they are still fighting with cold weapons. If the Xiandahu people use muskets and cannons, the effect of the battle is self-evident. Thinking of this, Chen Jinan's face showed an elegant smile. At this time, he looked like a scholar who was well read in poetry and books, and even more like a swordsman. Brother Xia has asked the right person. It's not far from here. It's a stronghold of my Xiandahu. If Brother Xia has nowhere to go, you can go with me. The Xiandahu welcomes friends from all directions. Brother Xia doesn't have to refuse. Chen Jinan's enthusiasm caught Xia Changqing off guard, but he naturally had his own little thoughts. Regardless of other things, just talking about Chen Jinan's move to get on the boat is worth Xia Changqing's planning. Xia Changqing was also very jealous of the magical martial arts. This is the man has feelings, and the concubine has intentions. Since Chief Chen has invited me so kindly, I will not refuse. After hearing what Xia Changqing said, Chen Jinan's smile became even brighter, and he felt that they had met too late. Then Brother Xia, follow my ship. When we get there, I will tell you about the current situation in the Central Plains. After the two sides negotiated, the atmosphere was very harmonious, and there was no tension at all. After the negotiation, Chen Jinan clasped his fists towards Xia Changqing and jumped off the Black Pearl in a chic manner, landing lightly on his ship. This amazing behavior made Jack and others, who had never seen martial arts such as King Gong, couldn't help but exclaim and widen their eyes. "Captain, what did you talk about just now? Do you know where we are?" Barbossa approached Xia Changqing and asked. After seeing Chen Jinin's chic figure, his brows knitted together. Barbossa always had a little vigilance in his heart for the power that he could not control. That man is called Chen Jinin. He is the leader of an organization called Chyandahu. He asked the Black Pearl to follow the other party's ship and invited us to his base. Xia Changqing briefly explained the Chyandahu and other organizations. When Jack and Barbossa heard that the other party was an organization that resisted the authorities, they immediately realized that they were like-minded. Captain, can the other party be trusted? Even if everyone is the same person, they must be vigilant. Don't have the intention to harm others, but be on guard against others. No matter what the other party's purpose is, let everyone be vigilant. Chen Jinin is a man of high skills and courage, and Xia Changqing is no less. The other party has martial arts and internal strength, and Xia Changqing also has magic. After Chen Jinin returned to the ship, he immediately ordered the ship to continue sailing, and the other party would follow behind, so everyone did not need to be nervous. Master, the other party's origin is unknown. According to my observation, those red-haired ghosts are all vicious. Isn't it too hasty to take them to the island rashly? A Chyandahu incense master said with a little worry. Those who can become Chyandahu incense masters are already powerful people. Chen Jinin naturally cannot ignore this person's proposal. Brother Yin, don't worry. No matter who the other party is, they are definitely not Tartars. Have you noticed Brother Xia's hair? If the Tartar court finds out about that short hair, it will not be as simple as beheading. Yin Xiangsu showed a look of realization on his face. When he was on the other ship, he was only alert to those red-haired ghosts, and didn't pay much attention to Xia Changqing's appearance. Now after Chen Jinin's reminder, he realized that the Tartar court strictly ordered everyone to have a rat-tail hair. Just based on the other party's head shape, it was enough to behead. I suspect that the other party's ancestors should have set out overseas, and the time they went overseas should be during the Ming Dynasty. Such people must have a sense of belonging to the Ming Dynasty. If you are more friendly, maybe the other party will become our ally. Chen Jinin looked at the people around him and said in a deep voice. Everyone looked at each other and replied in unison, follow the order of the chief leader. The atmosphere then relaxed. Another person who went with Chen Jinin laughed and said, Brother Yin, I don't think you need to be too nervous. Just now on the boat, I saw that the red-haired ghosts were floating under their feet. It was obvious that they had no martial arts. Not to mention the chief leader. Even I, old Chen, would not take them seriously. Master Chen, don't be reckless. Hearing this, Chen Jinin's face became a little serious. This Chen surnamed Xiangsu was born with a big and strong body, tall and strong, and had a hard kicking. It was difficult for ordinary swords to hurt him. Naturally, his spirit was very high. Don't underestimate those red-haired devils. Although they don't know martial arts, they have found a way to use firearms. Don't underestimate the muskets in their hands. Even your iron shirt, Master Chen Xiang, can't stop the opponent's musket attack. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, People with Lofty Ideals. Chen Jinin has traveled all over the country for so many years, shouldering the great cause of antiquing and restoration of Ming. Naturally, he is well informed and does not underestimate the power of muskets like Chen Xiangsu. Under his repeated instructions, although Chen Xiangsu was not convinced, he finally had a trace of restraint in his heart. He would not easily think of going out to try it out. Is it the power of the musket that is greater, or is his body stronger? The two ships sailed one after the other, and after only half a day, they arrived at the sea stronghold mentioned by Chen Jinin. Chief Helm, I finally waited for you. Why did you arrive so late? Then the letter said. I thought you met Tartars on the way. Listening to the concerned voices of his subordinates, Chen Jinin clasped his fists and returned the greetings one by one. I'm sorry to have worried you brothers. I encountered something on the road. The friend on the boat behind is my new friend. Bring them down. Don't disturb them. Don't worry, Chief Helm, your friends are naturally our friends. the members of the Xiandahu on the island said. However, when Xia Changqing brought Jack and Barbossa down from the Black Pearl, there were still exclamations. They never thought that the French engineer was talking about was actually a red-haired ghost. Oh, no, there is still a normal person in front. It's just that the other party is really bold. He actually kept such short hair and didn't take the order of the Tartar court seriously at all. Amid the constant discussion, some people also suggested that perhaps only such a person can become friends with the chief helmsman. Xia Changqing took Jack and Barbossa on the way to the island. Their arrival directly caused a commotion on the entire island. Unlike pirate kings like Xia Feng, these people of the Xiandahu live under the rule of Daking. The policy of closing the country to the outside world makes it difficult for them to contact the outside world. Although it is inevitable to be curious when suddenly seeing the exotic faces of Jack and Barbossa. In fact, many people present at the Xiandahu still hold old ideas in their hearts. In the Ming dynasty, the maritime ban was already very strict. They are naturally repulsive to foreigners. Brothers I'm so rude. These people on the island have not seen much of the world. I hope you can forgive me. Chen Jinan accompanied Xia Changqing with a slightly embarrassed look on his face. Xia Changqing subconsciously looked at Jack and Barbossa's faces. After seeing that the two extremely thick-skinned people did not show any discomfort, he naturally would not feel embarrassed. Master Chen, you are joking. It's just some jokes. I'm not so petty. Chen Jinan was relieved. The two of them talked and laughed and arrived at the base on the island. Looking at the rows of Chinese-style buildings, Xia Changqing felt a sense of nostalgia. After a long absence from his hometown, he finally returned today. How could he not feel nostalgic? For a moment, Xia Changqing was a little dazed. Chen Jinan, who had been observing Xia Changqing, was also certain when he saw this. Brother Xia, follow me into the house. I will have someone arrange a banquet. Today we hit it off right away. We must not leave until we are drunk. Chen Jinan took Xia Changqing's hand and walked into an ordinary house. Brother Xia, the conditions are difficult. I hope you don't despise it. Of course not. When I was overseas, I often heard about the various situations in the Central Plains. Now I see all this, and I feel very familiar with it. Chen Jinan laughed. After laughing, his face suddenly darkened, and his tone became deep. Brother Xia, I don't know if you understand that the Central Plains is no longer dominated by us Han people. Ah. Xia Changqing suddenly exclaimed, and a look of resentment appeared on his face. Even though I live overseas, I know something about the Central Plains. The Tartars took control of the Central Plains, and China was subjugated. You and I, the Han people, became fish on the chopping board, at the mercy of others. Chief, to be honest, I feel very uncomfortable just looking at this rat tail like braid on your head. Xia Changqing wanted to feel the goodness of the Ming dynasty, but unfortunately, he tried hard for a long time, and couldn't squeeze out tears. However, Chen Jinan was very satisfied with Xia Changqing's attitude. Brother Xia is right. The body and hair are inherited from parents. Now the Tartar court forces us to keep this hairstyle, which is to force us to become fatherless and motherless people like them. After Chen Jinan finished speaking, he remembered that Xia Changqing had short hair and was not a person who followed the filial piety of body and hair are inherited from parents. However, to his relief, Xia Changqing didn't care about this, and he nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Chen Jinan immediately changed the subject and asked, I haven't asked yet, Brother Xia, now that you have returned from overseas, do you have any thoughts of returning home in glory? If so, I advise you to give up. The chief leader is worrying too much. I naturally know the current situation in the Central Plains, and will not easily go to dangerous places. It's just that, now that China is in decline, I have a small influence overseas, so I thought about coming back to see if there is anything I can do to help you and me, the Han people. Xia Changqing said this sincerely. He did have this idea at the beginning, and he never expected to meet Chen Jinan. Good. Brother Xia is really a good man. I wonder how much you know about our Xiandahu? Chen Jinan praised, and immediately began to promote his own power. If he could absorb the other party, it would be great. You are all famous men in the Xiandahu. I also know your purpose of overthrowing the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. Nowadays, there are not many people like you who are kind and ambitious. Xia Changqing returned the favor with a face full of recognition. It is said that, if you have never met Chen Jinan in your life, it is in vain to call yourself a hero. Today, I'm able to meet the chief leader, and it will be clear. In just a few words, Chen Jinan has discovered that Xia Changqing is a man of ambition who strongly agrees with the ideas of their Shai and Hu. After a few more glasses of wine, Chen Jinan strongly invited Xia Changqing to join the great cause of overthrowing the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty. However, although Xia Changqing also has some sense of identity with the Ming dynasty, it does not mean that he will follow Chen Jinan to overthrow the Qing dynasty and restore the Ming dynasty. It is okay to overthrow the Qing dynasty, but it is not in the form of joining the Shai and Hu, but in a way of cooperation. Everyone gets what they need and everyone is happy. Xia Changqing put down his wine glass and said very seriously and regretfully, to be honest with you, I have a big family overseas, and many people are counting on me for food. Although Xia Changqing did not say it explicitly, his meaning was perfectly expressed. It would be a lie to say that he was not disappointed. However, Chen Jinan was not a person who would force others to do things. He smiled generously and just said that he would drink. Chapter 184 Fair Trade. Xia Changqing tried to be more tactful, but now it seems that he has failed. But it doesn't matter, his original purpose was not to join the Shai and Hu. Master Chen, although it is a pity that I can't devote myself to the great cause of antiquing and restoration of Ming with you, I still hope to contribute a little to our Han people. Chen Jinan put down his wine glass and stared at Xia Changqing. If you want to contribute a little, then contribute the cannons and muskets on your ship. This is not because Chen Jinan is too greedy. He is a very pure person. It is because the great cause of antiquing and restoration of Ming is very much in need of these materials, so Chen Jinan is so jealous. Master Chen, you have also seen the cannons on my ship. I wonder if the Shai and Hu needs these cannons. If possible, I want to give all these cannons to the Shai and Hu. Xia Changqing said slowly. Chen Jinan immediately suspected that he had heard it wrong. Could this person be so generous? It's just that I have an unreasonable request, but I don't know whether I should say it or not. Xia Changqing's face flushed, and he seemed to be very embarrassed. It turned out to be a request. Chen Jinan was relieved. To be honest, if Xia Changqing had no request and just wanted to give all these cannons to the Shai and Hu, he would have to think more. He suspected that Xia Changqing had some secret conspiracy or something. It's good to have a request. I like the way you have a request. At that moment, Chen Jinan suppressed his excitement. Brother Xia is righteous. You may not know that with these cannons, we don't have to be afraid of the Tartars' encirclement and suppression at sea. I don't know what you want. Just say it, brother will agree to it. This is directly calling himself a brother. Now Chen Jinan needs to unite all the forces that can be united. After hearing what Chen Jinan said, Xia Changqing was no longer polite and directly put forward his own unwelcome request. Master Chen, I have been interested in the martial arts of our Central Plains since I was a child. I heard that there is also an infinitely powerful internal skill. I don't know if Master Chen knows internal skills. I hope you can teach me some martial arts. After hearing this request, Chen Jinan was indeed a little hesitant. The so-called method should not be passed on lightly, especially in the Central Plains martial arts, which emphasizes the inheritance of master and apprentice. Xia Changqing's naked transaction behavior always made Chen Jinan a little uncomfortable. Xia Changqing also saw the hesitation on Chen Jinan's face. He pressed Chen Jinan's arm with his hand before Chen Jinan refused. Master Chen, don't rush to refuse. Overseas, everyone pays attention to fair trade. I naturally know the wonders of martial arts, but you may not understand the power of artillery. How about this? I would like to ask you to see the power of the artillery on my ship with your own eyes before making a decision. Chen Jinan did feel a little moved. Although the inheritance of martial arts is very important, compared with the great cause of overthrowing the Qing dynasty and restoring the Ming dynasty, personal honor and disgrace are all trivial matters. However, Xia Changqing is right. Even if it is a business, it is also necessary to pay for the goods before inspecting them. Okay, brother Xia, since you said so, it would be too hypocritical if I refuse again. Drink first, drink first. Thinking of the artillery on Xia Changqing's ship, Chen Jinan felt a burning sensation in his heart, and his attitude became 3 points more enthusiastic. Drink first, these two brothers should not be idle. Jack and Barbosa looked at each other blankly. They didn't understand what Xia Changqing and Chen Jinan were talking about at all, but Chen Jinan's attitude was visibly getting better. Since you don't understand, just concentrate on drinking and eating. After a banquet, both the host and the guests enjoyed themselves. Half an hour later, Chen Jinan looked at Xia Changqing and the other two with some weakness. They had drunk several pots of wine, but the eyes of these three people were still clear, without any signs of getting drunk. It was not known whether these three people had a good alcohol tolerance or the quality of their own wine was too poor. Chen Jin secretly exercised his internal energy, and his internal energy circulated in his meridians, and the few traces of alcohol disappeared completely. He couldn't discuss this deal with Xia Changqing in a drunken state. After eating and drinking, Xia Changqing put down his chopsticks. He couldn't remember how long he hadn't used chopsticks, but fortunately, the habit engraved in his bones prevented him from making a fool of himself in front of Chen Jinan. Chief Leader Chen, we are full of wine and food. Why don't we go out for a walk together? As the saying goes, walk 100 steps after a meal, and you will live to 99. I don't expect to live to 99, as long as I can live to 100 years old. After hearing this, Chen Jinan was stunned for a moment. What is the difference between 99 and 100 years old? Haha, haha. Chen Jinan laughed awkwardly. Brother Xia is really a wonderful person. Don't call me chief leader. I'm much older than you. If you don't mind, just call me Brother Chen. How dare you mind? Brother Chen is really joking. Xia Changqing is also a person who knows how to hit the snake with a stick. He directly called Brother Chen on the left and Brother Chen on the right, and the relationship between the two quickly became closer. After a drink, the two walked out of the house together, arm in arm, which directly shocked the Xiandahu gang. In their impression, although Chief Leader Chen is usually humble, he has never been so close to anyone. Who is this young man who leads a group of red-haired ghosts? How could he deserve such serious treatment from the chief leader? To be honest, not only the people of Xiandahu were wondering, but Jack and Barbosa were also wondering. They knew very well what kind of person Xia Changqing was. Now the closeness between Xia Changqing and Chen Jinan also made them very curious. Xia Changqing and Chen Jinan agreed to walk out of the island. The Black Pearl was parked on the outskirts of the island. Jack, Barbosa, let everyone be ready. Our new friends want to see the power of the artillery. Let them all be serious, and don't make any mistakes. On the way, Xia Changqing first took the time to arrange some work for Jack and Barbosa. Then the two took the opportunity to go ahead and return to the Black Pearl to pass on the captain's instructions. The crew did not dare to slack off. Although they did not agree with the captain's behavior of returning home in glory and being an Alvorish, since the captain's order had been issued, no one dared to ignore it. If this matter was messed up, the captain would never forgive them. Every crew member does their job conscientiously. Chapter 185, Gun Test. On the way back to the Black Pearl, there were greetings from the chief leader all the way, and Chen Jinan had to return the greetings one by one. Xia Changqing felt a little tired just by watching. I don't know if Chen Jinan adhered to the spirit of it's better to share happiness with others than to enjoy it alone, or was afraid that Xia Changqing would harm him after tricking him onto the ship, so he invited a large group of Xiandahu people along the way to go to the Black Pearl together. Well, it may also be that Xia Changqing judged others by his own meanness, but when there were more people, it seemed chaotic. After getting on the Black Pearl, the Xiandahu members who came with him were already a large black mass. When they saw the sailors from various countries on the ship, they exclaimed one after another. Xia Changqing and Chen Jinan came to a cannon together, and Chen Jinan touched the cannon body with some enthusiasm. He had the honor to see this powerful firearm in his early years. When he thought that the Xiandahu could be equipped with these cannons, he couldn't hide his excitement. Brother Chen, this is a 24-pound cannon that we always have on board. 24 pounds? Chen Jinan was somewhat puzzled. In Daking, these cannons were all collectively called red cannons. He really didn't know there was such a name. This is a specification unit. Overseas, they are all distinguished in this way. Do you want to see its power? Xia Changqing was not interested in explaining to Chen Jinan the difference in the size of the cannon. As long as the power satisfied him, both parties would get what they needed. I couldn't ask for more, Chen Jinan said impatiently. Seeing this, Xia Changqing chuckled secretly. He turned his head to look at Jack, indicating that he could start. Jack received the instructions, nodded in understanding, and directed the gunners to come to the front of the cannon. Clean the barrel, add gunpowder, put in the shells, and light the fuse. These actions were done in one go. A total of 10 cannons were fired, and none of them had any problems. Bang! 10 cannon shots seemed to merge into one, and 10 neatly arranged cannons roared together, and the shells rushed out of the barrels at high speed. Even if there were many people with strong martial arts skills present, they could hardly see the appearance of the cannons coming out of the barrels. By the time they were still trying to see the trajectory of the cannons, the 10 shells had already hit the sea. Boom. At the same time as the loud sound of the cannons hitting the water, the waves that soared into the sky had already appeared in front of everyone. Some timid people were directly frightened, and their legs were shaking, and they felt a little unstable. Even Chen Jinan was horrified. This huge iron lump was too powerful. It reminded him of Aobei, who was known as the first person in Daking. I'm afraid he couldn't withstand the power of this cannon. But Xia Changqing was secretly shaking his head. To be honest, he was not very satisfied with this result. The cannons hitting the water only stirred up a large area of water, far from landing on the real thing, and the visual effect was strong. However, it was just right for dealing with these bumpkins who had never seen a cannon. Brother Chen, what do you think of the power of my cannon? Xia Changqing had a proud smile on his face, and he was not worried that Chen Jinan would not be tempted. Good, good, good. Chen Jinan said good 3 times in a row. After all, he was a man with a strong state of mind. He had calmed down and looked at Xia Changqing sincerely. Brother Xia, are you really willing to give up these powerful cannons? These are all priceless treasures. Brother Chen, you are joking. Although these are priceless treasures, I also have something to ask for. Don't you think that your martial arts are not priceless treasures? Chen Jinan's expression was stunned, and then he smiled bitterly and said, Brother Xia, even I can hardly withstand the power of these cannons. Even if I learn martial arts, it will be useless in front of cannons. And if you want to learn martial arts well, it still depends on personal aptitude. At this point, Chen Jinan paused for a moment, and then continued with embarrassment. Brother Xia, to be honest, I hope you don't get discouraged. You are already past the stage of practicing martial arts at this age. Even if you start working hard now, it will be difficult to achieve much great success. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Chen. Xia Changqing clasped his fists and said, I'm just interested in the magical martial arts, and I don't force myself to practice any peerless magic. I just ask, do you think this business is worth doing? Yes, of course. Chen Jinan gritted his teeth and said, although he felt that he had taken advantage of the boss and his conscience made him embarrassed to do so, these cannons were too tempting. If he did not agree, he would not be able to explain to the brothers of the Xiandahu. That's it. Xia Changqing laughed. Since both you and I are willing, there is no need to worry too much about the value. I will give these cannons to you, and you will give me your martial arts. It is fair and just. Okay, I will do as you say, Brother Xia. But I will not forget this favor. No matter what, as long as you ask, Brother Xia, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. You are too polite, Brother Chen. Xia Changqing clasped his fists and said, I will let someone hand over the cannons to you first. Without waiting for Chen Jinan to refuse, Xia Changqing turned to Jack and Barbosa and said, let our people assist the brothers of the Xiandahu and send these cannons to the island for them. Jack was confused and did not react to what Xia Changqing meant. Don't you understand? No, Captain, you won't give all these cannons to them. Make a contribution to support the development of your hometown. What, is it not okay? Or do you have any objections? Xia Changqing looked at Jack with a bad face. I dare not, I dare not. Jack waved his hands and lowered his eyelids. Anyway, you paid for these things. Even if you give them all away, it is none of my business. Just don't give the black pearl away. In fact, Xia Changqing also thought so. Anyway, these cannons were bought. After giving them to Chen Jinan, you can spend money to buy more. And spending some insignificant money can get Chen Jinan's martial arts. In any case, he has earned it. When these people in the Xiandahu knew that Xia Changqing, a patriot from overseas, wanted to give them all the cannons on the ship, the people on the whole island were boiling. Such a great thing could actually fall on their heads. This is God's wish for their ambition, to restore their side to success. After hearing the news, the Xiandahu people on the island looked at Xia Changqing with friendly eyes, which was completely different from their initial aloofness. It would take some time to transport the artillery off the ship, and Xia Changqing had already begun to ask Chen Jinan for martial arts lessons. Chapter 186 Competition. The island was bustling with people busy, but Xia Changqing and Chen Jinan had already found a secluded place. Before starting to practice martial arts, Chen Jinan planned to learn about Xia Changqing's specific situation. The reason why martial arts training is suitable for children is that before really starting to practice martial arts, you need to strengthen your body and do a good job of basic work. Just like Chen Jinan himself, when he first started, he was doing horse stance, which he did for several years, so that he could have a stable lower body. Brother Xia, I see that your steps are steady and powerful when you walk. Have you practiced some martial arts? Xia Changqing thought about it and said to Chen Jinan, I have practiced a Western swordsmanship, which is not worthy of being in the elegant hall. The swordsmanship that Xia Changqing mentioned was naturally the water dance swordsmanship that he learned from Eria in the world of ice and fire. The water dance swordsmanship focuses on lightness and agility, and combined with the use of steps, it is a top-notch high-strength swordsmanship in the world of barbaric battles in the continent of Westeros. But if compared with the swordsmanship inherited from the land of China, there is a world of difference. Oh, Western swordsmanship? I wonder if you can show it to me? Xia Changqing's words were not worth mentioning, but Chen Jinan was also interested. He had not really seen Western swordsmanship yet. That is also possible. Master, please prepare a sword for me. If it was just about swordsmanship, Xia Changqing did not think that he would lose to Chen Jinan. The only martial arts in the world that cannot be defeated is speed. As long as the speed is fast enough, so fast that people can't react at all, it is the world's top swordsmanship. For details, you can refer to Arfei and Xiaoli Fideo. He holds an ordinary iron sword, but he also makes him a top master. It's just that Xia Changqing is not sure how much internal force can bless Chen Jinan's swordsmanship. Of course, this can only be known after a competition. It is very simple to find a sword on the island. A moment later, someone from the Xiandahu presented Xia Changqing with a long sword. Clang! Xia Changqing drew out his long sword, and a cold light flashed. The cold sword surface clearly reflected Xia Changqing's face. He admired his outstanding appearance with satisfaction and praised, "Good sword. A sword is given to a hero. If you don't mind, Brother Xia, this sword will be given to you." Chen Jinan's eyes flashed, and he said without hesitation, "It's just a sword. As long as Xia Changqing wants it, even if it is his own sword, he can give it to him without hesitation." Xia Changqing certainly has his own sword, the Valyrian steel sword Winter, which is made of Valyrian steel with magical effects, and is much more precious than these ordinary long swords. But now Xia Changqing has become accustomed to using the power of magic and rarely uses the long sword. I didn't expect that he would pick it up again now. Has he reached the legendary realm? Seeing a mountain is a mountain, seeing a mountain is not a mountain, and seeing a mountain is still a mountain. Of course, this is just Xia Changqing's fantasy, but a competition with Chen Jinan is what he wished. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing no longer hesitated. He drew his sword, held the scabbard with his left hand behind his back, and held the long sword with his right hand, which was naturally drooping, with the tip of the sword tilted upwards, pointing directly at Chen Jinan's chest. Chen Jinan narrowed his eyes slightly. An expert can tell the outcome with just one move. Although Xia Changqing only made a starting gesture, he could already see that the Western swordsmanship mastered by the other party was not simple. Seeing the prey, Chen Jinan was not hypocritical. He drew his own sword. "Brother Xia, please." "Okay." Xia Changqing snorted lightly, and his right hand shook slightly. The long sword suddenly hummed, and the tip of the sword stabbed away. It was like a poisonous snake biting, trying to swallow him whole. Years of combat experience made Chen Jinin's body react naturally. He paused lightly, and the whole person floated out like a rootless duckweed. After retreating 3 steps, Chen Jinin breathed a sigh of relief with lingering fear, and then praised, "What a fast swordsmanship! What a beautiful Qingang!" Xia Changqing's eyes also sparkled. He was determined to master this Qingang method. "Brother Xia, be careful." Chen Jinin shouted a warning, and then he thrust his long sword straight, flew up, like a rock spreading its wings, trying to kill Xia Changqing, the prey. "Come on." Xia Changqing praised, and then rushed forward. The two of them were already fighting together. The sound of ping pong continued to ring out, and the two long swords kept colliding. The 3-meter area around them became the battlefield of the two people. The autumn wind swept the fallen leaves, and there was an invisible force tightly surrounding the two people. Chen Jinin was getting more and more frightened as he fought. He could see that Xia Changqing's swordsmanship was not very sophisticated, and there was no blessing of internal force. The main reason he could fight to this point was his speed. If the sword is too fast, it can block his attack and advance. If the sword is too fast, Xia Changqing can find time to counterattack during the block. Just competing in pure swordsmanship, Chen Jinin has a feeling that he is destined to lose. This makes him feel absurd. He has been practicing martial arts for many years, and Xia Changqing is only in his early 20s. Has this kid started practicing since his mother's womb? It seems that he has to show some real kung fu. If he is really defeated by this kid, how can he have the face to teach him kung fu? The heart moves at will. When Chen Jinin has this idea, the internal breath in his body has begun to flow. In Xia Changqing's feeling, Chen Jinin's attack is 3 levels faster, and the strength of the two swords colliding also suddenly increases. Suddenly, the long sword in his hand almost slips out. "Let's stop here." Xia Changqing's mind raced. He had no intention of using magic power, and magic power could not be added to swordsmanship. The reason why he could suppress Chen Jinin with swordsmanship alone was mainly because of his transformed physique, which gave him a great advantage. "Let's stop here and give Chen Jinin some face." Thinking of this, after another 3 or 5 moves, Xia Changqing took the initiative to reveal a flaw, and Chen Jinin did not disappoint Xia Changqing's painstaking efforts. He successfully discovered this flaw and hit Xia Changqing with one blow. Chen Jinin quickly pointed the tip of his sword at Xia Changqing's chest, and then quickly put away the sword, showing his powerful control ability. Xia Changqing looked down, and saw that a hole the size of a grain of rice had been torn in his clothes on his chest. With a sigh, Xia Changqing put away the sword and stood. "Master, your swordsmanship is great. I admit defeat." Chen Jinin's face flushed. To be honest, he never expected that the boat would capsize, so he didn't dare to accept Xia Changqing's compliment. "Brother Xia is too modest. Your swordsmanship is not inferior to mine. Once you develop your inner breath, I'm afraid I won't be your opponent anymore." Chapter 187 Internal Force. "Brother Xia, I have nothing to teach you about sword moves. In that case, let's start with internal strength." After the two finished their competition, Chen Jinin took Xia Changqing to a quiet room. The whole room was empty, with only a few cushions placed on the ground. Chen Jinin sat cross-legged, pointed at the cushions in front of him and said, "Brother Xia, sit in front of me and learn my movements." Sitting cross-legged. Fearing that Xia Changqing had lived overseas since he was a child and did not know how to sit cross-legged, Chen Jinin patiently explained it bit by bit. Sitting cross-legged is the most suitable posture for practicing internal energy. Just sit still, hold your breath and concentrate. I will pass on the secret formula to you, but there is one thing you must remember. This formula comes from my mouth and enters your ears and must not be passed on to anyone else. When passing on the skills, Chen Jinin's face was extremely serious. He earnestly warned, remember, internal energy cannot be practiced blindly, and impatience is strictly prohibited. You must take one step at a time and you will eventually be able to achieve great results. I've got it. Xia Changqing replied with a serious face. Chen Jinin smiled with satisfaction, and then slowly said, sit cross-legged and calm your mind, relax and be natural. Close your lips and teeth lightly, and breathe slowly. Your hands must be clenched. Your eyes must look straight. Gather your divine light, and reach the heart of the sky. Enter the Niwen, and descend to the key point. If it is continuous, it will not be used frequently. The Danshan key is warm, and the kidneys are like boiling soup. The key flows through the belt meridian, and the self-cultivation is complete. An internal power mental method is only 100 or so words, but the words are obscure and difficult to understand. There are many places where, even if you know what the word is, you don't know what it means. Fortunately, there is a pioneer like Changqing here, who can guide him to practice. This kind of internal power mental method is not very famous. If you practice it blindly, you will sooner or later practice yourself. No wonder all kinds of martial arts are passed on by word of mouth from master to apprentice. There is nothing you can do about it. After orally reciting the whole mental method 3 or 4 times, Changqing began to explain the meaning of it to Xia Changqing word by word. Xia Changqing held his breath and concentrated. He felt very uncomfortable at the beginning. After sitting cross-legged for a long time, his legs became numb. Changqing naturally understood the key. He repeatedly reminded him, beginners will feel uncomfortable. If you want to practice in a breath, you must persist. Only by perseverance can you succeed. Xia Changqing adjusted his breathing according to Changqing's teachings, so that he could reach a state of concentration. Gradually, he forgot the numbness of his legs, and began to feel pleasant from practicing. If you want to really practice inner strength, it is not something that can be accomplished overnight. It also depends on your personal understanding. Fortunately, Xia Changqing has plenty of time now, so he is not in a hurry. The plan to leave this world was repeatedly shelved. Xia Changqing knew very well that what the next world would be like was unknown, and it was obvious that he could learn the magical martial arts of inner strength in this world, so it was obvious what he should choose. Jack, Barbossa, you guys go back to Port Royal first. Purchase a large number of muskets and cannons, and then transport them here. My country is in danger and needs a large number of weapons. Jack and Barbossa looked at each other. After returning to Port Royal, if Elizabeth knew that Xia Changqing had come to the east and did not plan to go back, I don't know how she would embarrass them. So, Jack still wanted to persuade Xia Changqing to go back with them. Captain, such an important matter requires you to do it yourself. How can we, the rough guys, be as careful as you? If this thing fails, you will eat us. Xia Changqing looked at Jack with a bad face. It's just purchasing some artillery and muskets. Can such a small matter be difficult for you? Captain, if you don't follow us back, Wyatt and Norrington will not listen to our command. What if they don't want to? I'll write a few letters for you to take back, and they will naturally cooperate with you. I have decided you should set off as soon as possible. Jack and Barbossa cried sadly. It was their bad luck to meet such a willful boss. It would be difficult to explain when they go back, but Xia Changqing had his own plan. It took a lot of energy to go back and forth from Port Royal to here. He didn't have time to calm down and practice on the ship. Thinking of this, it would be better to stay on the island directly. This place is remote and there is no invasion of the Tartars. In addition, Changqing is by his side and can give him instructions at any time. Where can you find such a good thing? Since Xia Changqing was determined to stay here, Jack and Barbossa could not persuade him. In desperation, the two had to embark on the journey back to Port Royal. As for whether the two would fight again for the position of captain of the Black Pearl, it was not something Xia Changqing cared about. Moreover, Xia Changqing was not worried that Jack and Barbossa would drive the Black Pearl away from Port Royal and return to their old business. The sailors of the Black Pearl were not lawless pirates, but trained members of the Royal Navy. If Jack and Barbossa really had the ability to directly instigate the sailors on the entire ship, Xia Changqing would also accept it. When the Black Pearl left the island, but left Xia Changqing behind, Changqing was also very surprised. Brother Xia, have you changed your mind and want to join our Xiandahu and work together for a great cause? Changqing has been looking forward to Xia Changqing joining the Xiandahu, and this idea has never changed. Brother Chen, please don't mention joining the Xiandahu anymore. I won't follow you to the Central Plains. I just hope to have a place on the island. Why? Changqing asked puzzledly. Nothing else. I just don't want to have a rat tail hairstyle. Xia Changqing looked at Chen Jinan seriously. Very good. This reason is very strong. Chen Jinan was speechless. Xia Changqing was right. If he really wanted to go to the Central Plains with them, he had to change his hairstyle. If his hairstyle didn't change, even if he wanted to go, Chen Jinan would not dare to take him. Okay, brother Xia, since you don't want to, I won't force you. You can stay on this nameless island as long as you want. Just based on the artillery Xia Changqing gave them, Chen Jinan had to show great sincerity to receive him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to pass his own test. Don't worry, chief leader. Of course I won't stay here for nothing. I have already ordered my subordinates to buy a large number of firearms overseas and then transport them here to help the Xiandahu's actions. Chapter 188 Sword Training. After Xia Changqing's words, Chen Jinan was extremely moved. At the same time, he was also very entangled. Although the Xiandahu was under the banner of anti-king and restoration of Ming, and was backed by the Zheng family of Taiwan Island, in general, their Xiandahu was very poor. Chen Jinan was not the kind of person who didn't understand things. He knew that the Xiandahu couldn't come up with so much money, and that it would take a lot of money to buy firearms. This made Chen Jinan very entangled. On the one hand, he really needed a lot of firearms to support the activities of the Xiandahu, and on the other hand, he didn't want to accept such a big favor from Xia Changqing for no reason. Xia Changqing saw his entanglement. He found Chen Jinan and said to him with a smile, "Brother Chen, you don't have to worry. After all, I'm also a Han Chinese. Seeing my country fall into the hands of foreigners, I'm also very anxious. It's a pity that I can't enter the Central Plains to deal with the Tartars myself. Some firearms are just my token of my gratitude. I will never forget my brother Xia's great kindness. The Xiandahu will definitely repay you." This was Chen Jinan's solemn promise. Xia Changqing laughed and said, "If you really want to repay me, then take the time to guide me in the cultivation of my internal strength. This is my due responsibility." Chen Jinan's face was a little embarrassed. Since he taught Xia Changqing the method of internal strength cultivation for the first time, he has not paid much attention to Xia Changqing. There is no other way. After all, Chen Jinan is in charge of such a large Xiandahu. Many affairs need him to do personally. It is rare for him to take the time to guide Xia Changqing in cultivation. Since the Black Pearl left, Xia Changqing has been practicing on the secluded island of the Xiandahu. He has become accustomed to this boring life. It even reminded Xia Changqing of the days when he had just gained magic power and was silent in the small village for 5 years. Chen Jinan has been busy with more and more affairs recently. He has left the island and went to the Central Plains to preside over the work of the Xiandahu. It is not known when he will come back next time. Before he left, he had specifically asked him to treat Xia Changqing in a friendly manner. In fact, Chen Jinan did not need to ask him at all. Most of the people living on the island now are kind-hearted people. After Xia Changqing gave the Xiandahu artillery and muskets, these kind and lovely people accepted him. The people living on the island are either members of the Xiandahu or the families of these members. They are like a big family. Although their lives are poor, they are extremely peaceful and harmonious. Xia Changqing likes this kind of secluded life, and the practice of internal strength has never stopped. After half a month of hard work, Xia Changqing felt the existence of the key that Chen Jinan mentioned in his body. Another month later, Xia Changqing could already feel a ball rolling in his dinshan. This was a sign of the entry of internal strength, proving that Xia Changqing had learned something. He didn't know whether his speed was fast or slow. Chen Jinan was not on the island, and he had no one to ask. However, Xia Changqing could clearly sense that internal strength and magic power were two completely different forces. Internal strength exists in the meridians in the body. When the internal strength is deep, it can be transported to all parts of the body along the meridians, and the speed, strength and resistance to blows are further enhanced. Magic power exists at the cellular level, and can also play a role in enhancing physical fitness. In terms of magic power is far greater than internal strength. Magic power can turn Xia Changqing into a magic dragon, and change the properties of objects, to achieve the use of water and fire to fight. Internal strength does not have these effects. However, Xia Changqing will not underestimate internal strength because of this. To borrow a word, there is a promising future. From internal strength to true ki, and then condensing into a golden elixir. It is said that once a golden elixir is swallowed into the stomach, my life is determined by myself, not by God. Whether it is internal force or magic power, they are tools that can lead to the great way. Xia Changqing will not reject any kind of ability. There is no time in the mountains, but it has been 1,000 years in the world. The days of seclusion and cultivation always pass quickly. Although Xia Changqing cannot reach the level of the legendary immortals, one cultivation is a sea change, but the days on the island still make him feel like watching the changing world with a smile. News about Chen Jinan is also coming. He took his brothers from the Xiandahu to the capital. Yin Xiangsu, whom Xia Changqing had met, unfortunately died, and then King Muhal had another Wei Xiangsu named Wei Xianobao. Although these are all internal news of the Xiandahu, because Xia Changqing has lived on the island for so long, the people of the Xiandahu on the island have already regarded him as one of them. These news were not hidden from Xia Changqing. The firearms that Xia Changqing gave to the Xiandahu also shined in the battle with the Tartars. After all, it is rare in the martial arts world. Most of the members of the Xiandahu are just rough fists and feet, and firearms are a great help to them. Xia Changqing received these messages, but he had no intention of getting involved. Just like he said at the beginning, he didn't want to shave his head to enter the Central Plains. Of course, Xia Changqing could enter the Central Plains in his current appearance. Even if he was discovered by the Tartar court, he would not be afraid of anything. But when he thought that no matter where he went, there would be Tartars shouting and killing him, Xia Changqing gave up this idea. Recently, Xia Changqing has become fascinated with sword practice again. Unlike the water dance sword technique, the Eastern sword technique is more attractive. No one on the island could teach him, so he studied it himself. No matter what martial arts, the original purpose of being created was to kill people, and as long as it can defeat and kill the enemy, this sword technique is the most exquisite sword technique in the world. This reminded Xia Changqing of those famous peerless swordsmen, which made him fascinated and wondered if he would have the opportunity to meet those legendary figures. Although Xia Changqing did not understand any Eastern sword techniques, he knew that, as long as he practiced the speed of sword drawing quickly, accurately, and steadily, it would not be worse than any sword technique. If he didn't achieve the desired result, it was because he wasn't fast enough, accurate enough, or stable enough. He always believed that the only way to defeat martial arts in the world was to be fast. So Xia Changqing started to practice swordsmanship, and the first thing he practiced was stabbing. The Eastern longsword was thin and light, and although it was sharpened on both sides, it was not suitable for chopping. It was completely different from the winter sword that Xia Changqing had used before. When fighting with the winter sword, the main thing was to chop. The Eastern longsword was lighter, so it was very suitable for stabbing. Xia Changqing's goal was that no one could dodge his sword. Chapter 189, Guns vs. Martial Arts. The days of sword practice were extremely boring, but Xia Changqing was happy to do it, as if what was placed in front of him was not a dummy wooden stake, but a peerless beauty. Xia Changqing would not feel bored if he could face it day and night. Half a year later, the Black Pearl came to this isolated island again. Jack and Barbossa followed Xia Changqing's instructions and brought a large number of firearms with the ship, but this time Chen Jinan was not on the island. In fact, he had not been back to the island for a long time. Xia Changqing commanded the people on the island and the ship to transport the muskets and cannons from the ship. But what Xia Changqing did not expect was that it was not only firearms that came with the ship, but also Elizabeth. Looking at Elizabeth dressed as a pirate queen, Xia Changqing felt a headache, and he tried his best to act very indifferent. Elizabeth asked Xia Changqing how he could bear to stay here and not return to Port Royal, and felt that Xia Changqing was a scumbag who abandoned his wife and children. Xia Changqing just replied that this was his hometown, his motherland, and now his country was suffering, and he couldn't just turn a blind eye. The final result was that Elizabeth was sad and hurriedly left the island in the Black Pearl. Xia Changqing was just sentimental for a moment and then completely forgot about it. Maybe Elizabeth was not wrong. Xia Changqing was a scumbag, and after experiencing so many worlds, he was an indifferent person in his bones. Xia Changqing knew very well that he would not stay in one world for a long time. No matter how wonderful this world was, there would definitely be different scenery in the infinite universe and countless planes. After this episode, Xia Changqing continued to devote himself to a semi-secluded life. Chen Jinan was recalled to the island by a letter. The huge number of muskets made him unbelievable. When he faced Xia Changqing again, he was already grateful. "Brother Xia, you really helped us a lot. With these firearms, I wonder how many more Tartars we can kill." Chen Jinan said excitedly. "Brother Xia, you don't know yet. The unscrupulous Tartar boy has surrendered, which can be regarded as comforting the souls of the brothers who died in his hands." Being able to kill a boy still made Chen Jinan very excited. Even though it had been so long, he couldn't wait to share it with Xia Changqing. "But I heard that it was not the brothers of the Xiandahu who killed a boy." "You mean Xiaobao? That's a good kid. I have accepted him as my apprentice. If there is a chance, I will bring him to meet you in person." Xia Changqing smiled and revealed the topic. Wei Xiaobao was a slippery person. He didn't feel any sense of belonging to the Xiandahu. It was just that Wei Xiaobao respected and loved Chen Jinan, his master, which was still an advantage. On the island, Chen Jinan rarely got drunk. Only here could he really relax. Under the influence of alcohol, Chen Jinan wanted to test Xia Changqing's current martial arts. No one expected that the usually steady chief leader Chen would also have a drunken crazy side. Xia Changqing was unwilling to fight with Chen Jinan in this state, for no other reason. It was not fair to win. The next day, after sobering up, Chen Jinan apologized for his rude behavior the day before, but his attitude towards fighting with Xia Changqing did not change at all. Xia Changqing also gladly accepted it. It was still the place where the two had their first sword fight. The two stood with swords in hand and fought at the sound of the wind. Xia Changqing's sword moved with the wind, and when the wind blew across Chen Jinan's hair, Xia Changqing's sword also scratched his hair. At this time, Chen Jinan's sword had just been raised. A strand of hair slowly fell to the ground, and the sword that Chen Jinan had just raised also froze in midair. What a fast sword! Chen Jinan exhaled slowly. Although he didn't want to admit it, the fact was that after Xia Changqing cultivated his internal strength, his sword became faster than before. It was so fast that he didn't react at this moment. It's better not to compare swords. Chen Jinan stood with his sword, not knowing what he was thinking about, and sighed. "Brother Xia, what's the point of us spending years and decades practicing martial arts all year round? No matter how high his martial arts skills are, a few muskets are enough to kill him." Xia Changqing knew what Chen Jinan was confused about. The emergence of firearms has greatly impacted the situation of cold weapon wars. Firearms have become the most important weapon to determine the outcome of a battle. But the same musket, in the hands of an ordinary person, and in the hands of a martial arts expert, is also two different things. Xia Changqing said in a low voice. He didn't have any confusion, because he knew how hot weapons would develop in the future. The power of human individuals would be infinitely reduced, making various martial arts useless. But that is the path of science and technology, while Xia Changqing wants to take the path of great power returning to oneself. These are two different paths, so he will not be confused. Xia Changqing did not have any pride in defeating Chen Jinan so easily. Chen Jinan's martial arts in this era is considered a first-class master, but it does not mean that his martial arts are also among the best in the martial arts world throughout the ages. In the ranking of various masters, no matter what, there will be no place for Chen Jinan. So there is nothing to be proud of in defeating Chen Jinan. Martial arts still need to be honed, and there can be no slackness. What Xia Changqing did not expect was that after this battle, Chen Jinan devoted more energy to the use of firearms. Using martial arts to control the musket, it is easy to solve the enemy from a distance, and there is no need to fight in close combat. Of course, this is all later, and Xia Changqing did not know that Chen Jinan would have such an idea at this time. The affairs of the Xiandahu are really getting busier now. Chen Jinan only stayed on the island for 3 days before leaving in a hurry. In the days that followed, members of the Xiandahu kept transporting firearms from the island. These people came and went, and left and came again. Xia Changqing watched all this quietly and slowly gained new insights. Life is like this, coming and going, and unpredictable. Not long after, new news came that Wu Sangui, the king of Pinxi, was shot by the Xiandahu with a musket. Although he did not die on the spot, he was seriously injured. The fact that the Xiandahu used muskets instead of swords and knives has attracted the attention of people in the martial arts world. Some people denounced this behavior, believing that the Xiandahu had tarnished the purity of the martial arts world, while others were in favor of it. To deal with a traitor like Wu Sangui, you must do everything you can. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Luoyang. The world's ups and downs are created by our generation. Once we enter the martial arts world, time will rush us. Where there are people, there is the martial arts world. In the spring of this year, the chilly feeling of winter had not yet gone away. Outside Luoyang City, a young man suddenly arrived. The young man was tall and straight, wearing a decent navy blue robe. His long, dense black hair was simply tied behind his head, leaving only a strand of black silk on both sides of his forehead, fluttering in the wind. He had a handsome face and a pair of eyes that flashed like black stars, making people unforgettable at first sight. Luoyang City has not welcomed such a young man for a long time. This person is naturally Xia Changqing. All the things in the last world have finally come to an end. Thinking of the last world, Xia Changqing felt a feeling of not knowing whether to cry or laugh. It is hard to tell whether it is a world of Pirates of the Caribbean or the world of the Deer in the Cauldron. His arrival has always had a very big impact on that world. However, everything in yesterday is gone, and people still have to look at the present. When he came to this world, Xia Changqing already understood what kind of world this was. The court was weak, and the major sects in the martial arts world rose up. After the legendary Xiao's army disappeared, the world had been quiet for 100 years. In recent years, there has been a force undercurrent in the world. This is a magnificent era, with heroes rising up, and various martial arts being performed one after another. And Xia Changqing's arrival vowed to use the sword in his hand, to fight all over the world. Of course, before that, he still needs to find a place to stay. In the rising sun of Luoyang City, the city gate has been fully opened. At the gate, two soldiers holding long spears stood lazily. Just by looking at their yawning, you can tell that they spent last night either in a brothel or in a gambling den. Xia Changqing followed suit and joined the crowd queuing outside the city gate without any intention of being special. It's just that his existence itself seems very out of place. Around him are farmers who live around Luoyang City and rush into the city early to sell their own vegetables and fruits. These people either carried sacks on their shoulders or pushed wheelbarrows. On the other hand, Xia Changqing was the only one who had nothing else in his hands, only holding a long sword in his left hand. This kind of dress that can be seen from the martial arts world is something that ordinary people can't afford to offend. However, these people did not behave too alienated, because no one knew whether these young knights who looked young would feel humiliated because you deliberately stayed away from them. Ordinary people naturally have their own way of survival. Xia Changqing is now sharp-eyed and can see what these people are thinking just from their eyes. But Xia Changqing didn't care, he just wanted to enter the city. The flow of people moved forward little by little, and soon it was Xia Changqing's turn. To his surprise, the two soldiers holding long spears showed fear on their faces after seeing him, and subconsciously shrank their necks and retreated. There was no dignity as a person in the court. In this way, Xia Changqing walked into Luoyang City very smoothly. Or 1,000-year-old city, the ancient capital of 13 dynasties. This is the Luoyang City that Xia Changqing knew in his original world, and in this strange world, Luoyang still retains these characteristics. Xia Changqing walked into the ancient city and looked at the remnants of history. What caught his eye were the crisscrossing streets and various ancient buildings, located on both sides of the neat bluestone roads, with flags flying on them, and simple words embroidered on them, to show what kind of business this store was doing. Half an hour after entering Loyang City, Xia Changqing stood in front of a huge stone statue with a strange look on his face. With ancient technology, it was not easy to carve a statue as high as 4 or 5 meters. What surprised Xia Changqing even more was that this stone statue was located in the center of Loyang City, and this person was not a high-ranking official, let alone a saint. It was a young man standing with a sword. Big brother, are you here to pay your respects to the statue of Little Shrimp? Perhaps it was because Xia Changqing had been standing in front of the statue for too long. A boy about 14 or 15 years old came up cautiously. Xia Changqing looked over and smiled gently, staring at the boy without saying anything. It can be seen that the boy was a little nervous. He even swallowed hard when Xia Changqing looked at him. However, the boy did not leave because of fear. He looked at Xia Changqing carefully and said carefully, "Big brother, this is your first time in Loyang. Everyone who comes to Loyang will come here to pay their respects to the statue of Little Shrimp." "Yes," Xia Changqing said slowly. His voice was unexpectedly gentle. This made Xia Wu's heart settle down a little. He glanced at the long sword in Xia Changqing's hand and asked tentatively, "I wonder if you need a guide, brother." "I'm not bragging, I'm familiar with every street in Loyang City." "Oh." Xia Changqing raised his tone lightly. He knew what the boy meant. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing carefully looked at the boy in front of him. The chilly winter has not passed yet. The boy's clothes are obviously too thin. His slightly shivering body proves that he is not without feeling the cold. Maybe he doesn't have extra money to buy warm clothes. Xia Changqing thought so, and then he asked the boy in front of him, "Then, what is the price?" Xia Wu was delighted, and he blurted out the reward he expected in his mind. 15 cents. "No, just 10 cents will do. Just 10 cents. I will be your guide for the whole day today, brother. Wherever you want to go, I can take you there. 10 cents. Xia Changqing didn't know what the purchasing power of a currency in this world was, but he knew that 10 cents was definitely not much. "Okay, I'll leave it to you," Xia Changqing said happily. He didn't mind having an extra guide, and this child was quite pleasing to his eyes. Great. After hearing Xia Changqing's agreement, the boy cheered excitedly, and then he immediately realized that he was too obvious, and the excitement on his face quickly disappeared. The boy looked at Xia Changqing in fear, fearing that Xia Changqing would regret his performance, and then he would have no place to cry. Xia Changqing smiled and shook his head. In the boy's worried eyes, he smiled and said, "Then let's go." Chapter 191 Xia Wu. Loyang City is so big that, even if Xia Changqing wants to visit the whole city, it will not be done in a day or two. Xia Wu led the way in front, and Xia Changqing already knew his name. If we talk about the most famous place in Loyang, besides the statue of Xiao Zami, it must be the White Horse Temple. Xia Wu said excitedly, as if he was proud to introduce the famous buildings in Loyang to Xia Changqing. White Horse Temple. Are there monks with strong martial arts in the temple? Xia Changqing asked curiously. I don't know. I have never seen the masters of the White Horse Temple take action, but I know that the masters of Shaolin Temple are all strong in martial arts. Xia Wu's eyes showed yearning. I didn't expect you to know about Shaolin Temple. Xia Wu, do you want to enter Shaolin Temple to learn martial arts? No, I don't want to. Xia Wu hurriedly shook his head, as if joining Shaolin Temple was a very painful thing. I won't join Shaolin Temple. I heard that, after joining Shaolin Temple, you have to become a monk. You can't marry and have children. You can't drink alcohol and eat meat. Not to mention, if I become a monk, my mother will be heartbroken. Xia Wu counted on his fingers, and listed the disadvantages of becoming a monk one by one. Xia Changqing was a little amused. He couldn't help but tease Xia Wu. Haven't you heard that all martial arts in the world come from Shaolin? If you want to be a hero like Xiao Zami, you have to join Shaolin Temple to have the opportunity to learn peerless martial arts. Do you think I don't know? Xiao Zami didn't learn martial arts from Shaolin Temple. Xia Wu glanced at Xia Changqing with a sidelong look, as if you can't fool me at all. My dream is to grow up a little bit, join the Changhang escort agency, become an escort, and then get married. Speaking of getting married, Xia Wu chuckled shyly a few times. How old are you, and you're already thinking about getting married? I'm not young anymore. My mother has been arranging marriages for me recently. Xiao Wu simply said this, but he stabbed Xia Changqing invisibly. Xia Changqing looked at Xiao Wu depressedly. In his original world, he was only in high school, but here, he is already old enough to get married and have children. When Xia Changqing thought of this, he felt that he had become much more mature. Seeing Xia Changqing sighing softly, and the smile on his face disappearing, Xiao Wu immediately stopped laughing, and returned to his cautious look. Nothing. Xia Changqing saw Xiao Wu's caution. Xiao Wu, if I want to stay in Luoyang, do you have any recommendations? That depends on whether you want to stay for a long time or a short time. Xiao Wu regained his energy. If you want to stay for a short time, you can go to the inn, but the cost will be a bit high. If you want to stay for a long time, you can go to the pawn shop to find a middleman and rent a small courtyard. Oh, do you even know the middleman in the pawn shop? Xia Changqing looked at Xiao Wu in surprise. He didn't expect that this kid had so many connections. Xiao Wu scratched his head and laughed foolishly. It seems that you are planning to live in Luoyang for a long time. If you want to rent a small courtyard, I know one. Is it your house? If it was really Xiao Wu's house, Xia Changqing wouldn't mind renting it. That's not the case. It's the house of Aunt Wang next door to my house. Her son is not in Luoyang. He went to Sichuan to join the Beikao sect, so there is a yard vacant. I asked her if she is willing to rent it to you. Xiao Wu was a little embarrassed as he spoke. Although it is said that good things should not be given to outsiders, he still felt a little embarrassed to recommend his neighbor so obviously. Brother, our place may be a little remote. I hope you don't mind it. Of course, you can take a look first. If you are not satisfied, I can also take you to the brokerage to find a middleman. As if he thought of something, Xiao Wu hurriedly explained again. It's okay, just lead the way. Xia Changqing smiled gently. He didn't have many requirements for the place to live. As long as it was secluded and no one came to disturb him, it would be fine. Okay, no problem. Xiao Wu was happy. He took Xia Changqing all the way to the East District of Luoyang. The East District, in Luoyang City, is a place where the lower class gather. There are densely built buildings here, and several narrow alleys crisscross and run through the east and west. Fortunately, the narrow alleys were paved with bluestone slabs, so they didn't look dirty or muddy. In this dynasty, most of the lower class people still maintained the small peasant economy. So in this lower city area, that didn't even have a name, there were countless vendors. It was a very lively scene. But Xiao Wu was still a little embarrassed. Brother, if you dislike us here, let's go somewhere else. But don't underestimate us here. The neighbors around are very harmonious, and the rent is cheap. It's definitely worth the money. Xiao Wu was afraid that Xia Changqing would get angry and turn around and leave, so after entering this area, he didn't mind explaining the various benefits of this place to Xia Changqing. Let's take a look at the yard first. Xia Changqing put his hands behind his back and said without comment. A moment later, Xiao Wu had brought Xia Changqing to a small yard. Xiao Wu went up and knocked on the door. Auntie Wang, are you home? Immediately, a voice came from the yard. I'm coming. Who is it? The wooden door creaked open, and an old woman with a kind face walked out. Auntie Wang, this guy wants to rent the yard that your family has vacated. Take him to have a look. Xiao Wu said impatiently. It's Xiao Wu. Auntie Wang greeted, and then cast her eyes on Xia Changqing, and paid more attention to the hilt of the sword that was exposed when he stood with his hands behind his back. This young gentleman, do you want to rent my yard? Auntie Wang showed a hint of hesitation between her brows. Even if he was a young man, he was not someone that the lower class people like them could provoke. Xia Changqing saw the hesitation on Auntie Wang's brows, and he smiled gently and nodded. Auntie Wang, my name is Xia Changqing. I've just arrived and would like to settle down in Luoyang for a while. May I see your yard first? Young man Xia, where are you from? If you come to Luoyang to make a living, I mind if you try the Changhang escort agency. The escorts there have free food and lodging, and they can also get a monthly salary of 1 or 2 taels of silver. Auntie Wang spoke slowly and recommended a good place to Xia Changqing in a blink of an eye. To be honest, she was unwilling to rent her house to a gangster like Xia Changqing. Chapter 192, Apply. Xia Changqing felt a bit amused and helpless. He didn't expect that Auntie Wang wanted to push him out before they even discussed the rent. Before Xia Changqing could say anything, Xiao Wu was already anxious. Auntie Wang, your room is empty anyway, why not rent it to my brother? Xia Changqing nodded and said, Auntie Wang, thank you for your recommendation. If I don't find any way, I can try to apply for the Changhang escort agency. However, I like quietness. Even if I become an escort of the Changhang escort agency, I still want to live alone in a quiet place. After saying this, Auntie Wang had no reason to refuse. The most important thing was that she couldn't reject Xiao Wu's kindness. Anyway, if she could rent out her house, the money she earned would be enough to subsidize the family expenses. Auntie Wang went back to the house to get a bunch of keys and took Xia Changqing and Xiao Wu to open the gate of the next door. After pushing open the wooden door, a small courtyard with 3 rooms appeared. If Xia Changqing lived alone, it would be enough for him to live there. Xia Changqing did not have high requirements in this regard. He nodded with satisfaction. What made him even happier was that there was a jujube tree in the courtyard with a huge crown, which provided shade and coolness, which was quite convenient. Let's go here, Aunt Wang. I wonder how much you want to rent this courtyard a month. This. Aunt Wang hesitated for a moment and then said, if you rent it alone, the rent will not be reduced for you. Of course, if you want to rent it out again, I will not stop you. How about this? The rent is 300 wen per month. If you pay more at once, I can give you some reduction. Xia Changqing nodded thoughtfully. 300 wen did not sound like a lot, but when he thought about the fact that the monthly salary of the escorts of Changhang Escort Agency was only 1 or 2 taels of silver, these 300 wen were not a small amount. It may also be that Aunt Wang just said it casually, and she was not very clear about how much the monthly salary of the escorts of Changhang Escort Agency was. Okay, then we'll calculate it based on 300 coins. I'll give you half a year's rent first, but do you need a receipt or something? In a small place like ours, we rely on our reputation, so there's no need for any receipts. If you're worried, brothers we can just pay month by month. No need to be so troublesome. I'll pay half a year first. Xia Changqing took out a small piece of silver from his pocket on the spot, which was 2 taels, or 2,000 coins, and handed it directly to Aunt Wang. Is this too much? Aunt Wang took the silver at a loss. Although she was illiterate and couldn't count, she knew how much rent she needed for half a year. Auntie Wang, take this silver. Please help me find someone to clean the yard and buy some daily necessities. No problem, no problem. Auntie Wang agreed. I don't know if you have any special requests, brothers I will buy them for you. It's enough for daily life. There are no special requirements. After seeing off the overjoyed Auntie Wang, Xia Changqing took Xiao Wu to a local restaurant and had a good meal. After this meal, the silver in Xia Changqing's pocket became stretched. He had to find a way to make some pocket money. The silver brought from the previous world was not much, and Xia Changqing didn't care too much about it because he didn't know what the next world would be like after he experienced this world. Is silver useful? Is banknotes useful? These are all unknown things. Since he didn't know in advance whether these money would be used in the next world, Xia Changqing naturally wouldn't spend the time to prepare them specially. At this time, Xia Changqing remembered what Auntie Wang said about Changhang Escort Agency. Maybe this is also a good choice, Xia Changqing thought, touching his chin. Escort, this is a new version of the ship that he has never experienced before. It's not bad to try it. After a short rest in the afternoon, Xia Changqing, under the guidance of Xiao Wu, walked through the streets and alleys and came to the southwest of Luoyang City. Changhang Escort Agency is located here, covering a large area. It is said that Guan Changhang, the founder of Changhang Escort Agency, is a descendant of Guan Yu in the Three Kingdoms period and is good at using a Qinglang Yanyu sword. Guan Changhang, also known as one of the 3 heroes of Luoyang, is one of the top forces in this huge city of Luoyang. Luoyang City has a vast area with all kinds of people, and it is also full of large and small gangs. These people in the market all dream of being able to worship under a big force. With the protection of a big force, they can live like a fish in water in the city of Luoyang. Now, Xia Changqing has stood at the door of Changhang Escort Agency. The afternoon sun brought warmth and made people drowsy. On both sides of the door of Changhang Escort Agency, two young men dressed in formal attire stood guard. After noticing Xia Changqing, the two men immediately perked up. One of them came forward and saluted. "Excuse me, young man, do you have any escort items to entrust to our Changhang Escort Agency?" Xia Changqing took a look at the facade of Changhang Escort Agency. The tall door and large plaque made it look very impressive. It was like a different world from the Dongcheng district where Xiao Wu's family lived. "I'm not here to entrust an escort. I want to ask if your escort agency is still recruiting people. I'm here to apply for a job as an escort master." "Oh, so you're applying for a job?" The two young men were not surprised. There were many people who came to Changhang Escort Agency every day to look for opportunities. They had long been accustomed to it. Just to apply for a job as an escort master? The two young men laughed secretly and looked Xia Changqing up and down with a hint of contempt in their eyes. At this age, it was already a great honor for him to become a porter. He even dared to dream of becoming a escort master. "Do you think you are the young escort leader?" However, the two young men were strictly trained and would not easily make fun of others. Otherwise, they would not be sent to the door to receive the people who came to ask for escort. "Please wait here for a while, I will report back." The other party was quite polite, and Xia Changqing naturally had the patience to wait. However, after 5 or 6 minutes, the young man returned to the door again. "Young man, please follow me in. Escort Master Feng will be responsible for assessing you. If you pass the assessment, we will both be members of Changhang Escort Agency in the future." Xia Changqing followed the other party into Changhang Escort Agency. The first thing he saw was a vast courtyard with hard stone slabs underneath. On both sides of this small square, there were wooden racks with various weapons on them. Swords, spears, halberds, axes, hooks, forks, and 18 kinds of weapons were all available. Chapter 193 Assessment. Facing the dazzling array of weapons, the young man leading the way was proud. "People in our escort agency will learn martial arts here in the morning, but I see you are holding a sword, so you must have martial arts skills, and don't need to follow the escort master in the courtyard to learn martial arts." Xia Changqing smiled and said nothing. The young man felt uncomfortable and embarrassed. On the way, he ignored Xia Changqing. Turning all the way into the backyard, the Changhang Escort Agency covers a very large area. It took half a cup of tea to walk to the destination. "Master Feng, I have brought the people." Feng, the escort leader, was originally named Feng Wenji. He is 43 years old this year. He has been an escort for nearly 10 years. He is a senior escort leader in Changhang Escort Agency. The personnel configuration of an escort agency not only has low-level workers, but also requires escort masters with strong martial arts skills to lead the team. Senior escort masters can be promoted to escort leaders. After becoming the escort leader, this person is considered to be in a high position in an escort agency. Generally, if the escort is not very important, he does not need to take action. Logically speaking, it is just a test for a newcomer who wants to join the escort agency, and there is no need for an escort leader to come forward. However, Xia Changqing came up and said that he wanted to apply for the position of escort master, which attracted the attention of Feng Escort. "I heard that you want to apply for the position of escort master in our Changhang Escort Agency?" Feng Escort said, stroking his beard with one hand, sitting upright on a chair placed in front of the hall, looking up and down at Xia Changqing. "Not bad." Xia Changqing replied loudly. At the same time, he was also looking at Feng Escort carefully and saw that his hands were already thick with calluses. The attainment of this palm kung fu did not seem simple. "Well, young man, you have great ambition." Feng Biaotao praised him, and then his expression became serious, and he said sternly, "But if you want to become a escort, it depends on whether you have real skills. Young man, if you talk big, don't blame me, old Feng, for throwing you out." Hearing Feng Biaotao's cold words, Xia Changqing's expression was unmoved. This skill must be tested with hands, and no matter how much you say, it's useless. On the contrary, the young man who led the way had a gloating look in his eyes. Since Feng Biaotao said so, he would definitely do it. And Feng Biaotao, looking at Xia Changqing's expression of being indifferent to praise or criticism, was also happy. At his aging position, he simply disdains to suppress outstanding young people, and he is not afraid of these young people replacing him. To be honest, Feng Biaotao thinks that he is already an old generation, and he plans to retire in Changhang Escort Agency. So for the future of the escort agency, cultivating more outstanding young people has become his main goal now. Xia Changqing didn't know that Feng Biaotao would have so many thoughts in his mind. He raised his sword and clasped his fists and saluted. Feng Biaotao, please review it. Good. Feng Biaotao praised. Originally, if you were just applying for the position of a porter, you only needed to fight with other porters in the escort agency, but since you are young and want to get to the top in one step, then I, an old man, will personally test your depth. Feng Biaotao, just let it go. Xia Changqing said lightly. I see that you are also a swordsman, so then I will test your swordsmanship. Feng Biaotao said to the young man who had been standing by, Xiaohua, go get a sword. Yes, Master Feng. The young porter named Xiaohua trotted out of the courtyard and went to the martial arts field. He couldn't wait to see Xia Changqing, the pretentious man, make a fool of himself. When the young porter handed a long sword to Feng Biaotao, he was already panting. Feng Biaotao took the long sword, stood up from the armchair, drew the sword in his hand, and then threw the scabbard to Xiaohua. Boy, don't say that I bully you. I'll let you 3 moves first. Feng Biaotao, you don't have to give up your moves, just attack. Xia Changqing shook his head and did not agree to give up his moves. Feng Biaotao's eyes changed. Boy, being too arrogant is not a good thing. Since you don't need it, I won't be polite. After saying that, Feng Biaotao made it clear that he wanted to teach Xia Changqing a lesson. He stepped on the stone steps and flew down, pointing the long sword directly at Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing narrowed his eyes slightly. Feng Biaotao's sword was very fast, even faster than Shenjinen's sword. It's interesting. Xia Changqing felt a little excited. A bodyguard of an escort agency has such skills. This world is so interesting. Ding. A crisp sound was heard. At some point, Xia Changqing had already drawn his sword and struck back, with the tip of his sword lightly touching the tip of Feng Biaotao's sword. Feng Biaotao only felt a strong force coming from the tip of the sword. He did not see clearly when Xia Changqing drew his sword, but his forward momentum had been blocked. Without panic, Feng Biaotao pulled back his long sword, and with the help of Xia Changqing's force, he flipped over Xia Changqing's head. When Feng Biaotao landed steadily behind Xia Changqing had already turned around leisurely, holding the scabbard behind his back with his left hand, and holding the long sword with his right hand pointing diagonally to the ground. Feng Biaotao took a deep breath and shook the long sword in his hand, shaking out a sword flower, which was gorgeous and full of infinite murderous intent, and covered Xia Changqing's whole body. Ding, ding, ding. In an instant, the crisp collision sound rang out more than a dozen times, and all of Feng Biaotao's violent attacks were blocked by Xia Changqing. The porter named Xiaohua standing aside was already full of horror at this time. In his opinion, there were only crisp collision sounds and a brilliant sword light on the field, covering the figures of the 2 people. In a flash, Feng Biaotao and Xia Changqing had fought for more than a dozen rounds. Good. Feng Biaotao secretly praised himself. He knew that he had met a master. The young man in front of him was not bragging. He really had the ability to become a escort. But the battle was not over yet, and Feng Biaotao did not relax. The sword dance in his hand became more and more urgent, with various moves, and he attacked Xia Changqing urgently. From beginning to end, Xia Changqing's expression did not change much. If the porter named Xiaohua observed carefully, he would find that Xia Changqing's footsteps did not move much at all. In fact, Xia Changqing had already stopped. From the time Feng Biaotao attacked till now, he had discovered at least 3 flaws. If Xia Changqing wanted to, he was fully capable of defeating Feng Biaotao. It was just that Xia Changqing only wanted to be a escort master, and he thought that the martial arts he had shown were enough for him to become an escort master. Chapter 194 Joining the company. Suddenly, the two people who were fighting suddenly separated. Feng Biao stood with his sword, smacked his lips, savored it for a moment, and suddenly threw his sword away and laughed. Good, good, good. Feng Biao praised 3 times. You are really a hero in your youth. Boy, you have great martial arts. No more fighting, no more fighting. I'm really old. I can't even compare with a young man. Feng Biao is in his prime. How can I be old? The boy is just relying on his youth. Otherwise he would definitely not be the opponent of the escort chief. Everyone carried the sedan chair. Since Feng Biao valued him so much, Xia Changqing naturally returned the favor and did not hesitate to compliment him. Great. Feng Biao showed admiration in his eyes. The more he looked at Xia Changqing, the more he liked him. Such a charming young man, coupled with such good martial arts, came to their escort agency to be a bodyguard. It was really a waste of talent. Boy, what's your name? Where are you from? It was not until now that Feng Biao thought of asking Xia Changqing's name and origin. In such an era, information transmission is so scarce, so Xia Changqing can say whatever he wants. Boy Xia Changqing, from Kilu, nice to meet Feng Biao. Xia Changqing clasped his fists and said, Ludi is not far from Luoyang, but it is not close either. If Feng Biao really wanted to find out Xia Changqing's origin, it would not be easy, and it is very reasonable to go from Ludi to Luoyang with Xia Changqing's martial arts. I just heard that your accent has some flavor of Ludi, Feng Biao said with sudden enlightenment. It may be a psychological effect. Anyway, Xia Changqing did not feel any flavor of Ludi in his accent. Born in Lu, are you from Taishan sect? Feng Biao asked. In Lu, the only famous sect was Taishan sect. Of course, it was not to say that there were no other sects, but Feng Biao believed that in the whole Lu, apart from Taishan sect, there was really no other sect that could teach a disciple like Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing did not dare to admit this, mainly because the risk of being exposed was too great. Xia Changqing did not know Taishan sect's martial arts, so there was no need to increase the risk. I'm not from Taishan sect. Xia Changqing smiled helplessly. I was born in a remote mountain village. When I was young, I was fortunate to meet an old senior who lived in seclusion in the mountains, and learned a few skills from him. I see. Feng Biao nodded thoughtfully. He did not doubt anything. Indeed, many senior masters like to live in secluded places to avoid the world. This is not a rare thing. This is your chance. Our Changhang escort agency doesn't care about your background. Since you have the ability, Changhang escort agency will have you as your bread and butter. Escort Master Feng said with great promise. You are qualified. From now on, you are an escort of Changhang escort agency. Work hard. Young people will always have the opportunity to make a name for themselves. Thank you, Escort Master Feng. Xia Changqing said with a fist. Not bad. Xia Changqing's attitude was neither humble nor arrogant, which sweetened Escort Master Feng's appetite. This is something worth celebrating. I will report to Chief Escort you right away. Xiaohe, take Escort Master Xia to find out the way and get familiar with our Changhang escort agency. Turning around, Escort Master Feng said to Zhu Xiaohe. The young porter had long been envious of Xia Changqing. He never expected that Xia Changqing would actually rise to the top and become an escort of Changhang escort agency. He also heard the order of Feng the escort. He did not dare to disobey. Or maybe Zhu Xiaohe also wanted to please Xia Changqing. In Changhang escort agency, the status of an escort is not comparable to that of a porter. If Xia Changqing really wants to make things difficult for him, Zhu Xiaohe can't afford it. Brother Xia, no, it's Escort Xia, please follow me. I will take you around Changhang escort agency. Xia Changqing naturally knew the reason for this arrogant and respectful attitude. Of course, he did not show any arrogant attitude. The martial arts world is too big and the rivers and lakes are too far away. Xia Changqing did not have any capital to be arrogant. This time Zhu Xiaohe was very dedicated. He took Xia Changqing to visit the entire Changhang escort agency and met many people. An hour later, the two met Feng the escort again. Xiaohe, go and do your work. I will take Changqing to see the chief escort. Escort Captain Feng said immediately and hurriedly. Without waiting for Zhu Xiaohua to agree, he took Xia Changqing's hand and went to the backyard. Zhu Xiaohua, who was left there, opened his mouth helplessly. He had been running for so long, and even if he had no credit, he had worked hard. However, escort Captain Feng didn't even say a word of comfort and just sent him away. Without mentioning the sad Zhu Xiaohua, Xia Changqing was pulled by escort Captain Feng all the way to the hall in the middle of the backyard. A middle-aged man and an elderly man were waiting for two people in the hall. "Chief Escort, I have brought the people here." Escort Captain Feng's loud voice rang out from a long distance. Xia Changqing followed him into the hall and saluted with his fists. "Greetings, Chief Escort. Master Xia, there's no need to be polite. I've heard about your story. The promise made by Master Feng is my promise. Changhang Escort Agency belongs to us now, but the future belongs to you young people. It's a pity that Weir is not here, otherwise you would have gotten along well." Guan Changhang encouraged Xia Changqing again, and then said to the old man beside him, "Mr. Liu, record Changqing in the roster of our escort agency. From now on, he is a member of the Changhang Escort Agency." The old man surnamed Liu stroked his beard, smiled faintly, and said to Xia Changqing, "Little brother Xia, my surname is Liu. You can call me Mr. Liu. I'm the chief steward of this Changhang Escort Agency. You are now an escort master of our Changhang Escort Agency. Your monthly salary is 5 taels of silver. If you escort, you can also get a commission, based on the amount of escort money. This is about the treatment." Xia Changqing doesn't care about money. He doesn't really have to live in this world for many years. As long as a monthly salary is enough for food and drink, it's fine. By the way, do you have your own place to live? If you don't have a place to live, you can live inside the escort agency. Of course, the accommodation is free, but you have to pay for the food and drink yourself. I hope Mr. Liu will know that I have rented a yard in the east of the city, so there is no need to worry about accommodation. Okay, the escort agency won't force you, but you have to come to the escort agency early to report on time. If you are late, don't blame me for deducting your monthly salary. Mr. Liu said in a business-like manner. Of course. Xia Changqing replied, "Since I have received this monthly salary, I will naturally complete the corresponding work." Chapter 195 Challenge. Very good. Escort Xia, do you have any other requests? If not, you can leave first. Don't be late tomorrow morning. After Mr. Liu explained the remuneration and the obligations of the escort, Guan Changhang waved his hand and began to order them to leave. However, Xia Changqing really had something to do. He didn't move his feet, looking at Guan Changhang with a gleam in his eyes. "I heard that Chief Escort Guan is known as one of the 3 heroes of Luoyang, and is good at using a Qinglang Yanyu sword. I dare to ask the Chief Escort for advice." Before Xia Changqing finished speaking, the hall was already silent. Arrogant. Feng looked at Xia Changqing with an ugly face. "Do you think you are very good at martial arts? You dare to challenge the Chief Escort?" After saying that, Feng turned to look at Guan Changhang, apologetic. "Chief Escort, I'm sorry, I think Changqing didn't mean it. I will teach him a lesson in person later." "I don't care," Guan Changhang said with a smile. "It's a good thing for young people to have ambitions. As seniors, how can we discourage the ambition of the younger generation?" Guan Changhang is not a petty person. He didn't feel offended by Xia Changqing's request. "Well, since Feng praised you so much, I will try it myself to see how powerful you are, a young talent." "Chief Escort?" Guan Changhang waved his hand, indicating Feng that he didn't need to say anything more. He took his knife from the knife rack behind him. Of course, it was not the legendary Qinglang Yanyu sword. In Guan Changhang's opinion, it was not necessary to use Qinglang Yanyu sword to deal with Xia Changqing. Changhang Escort Agency is good at using long swords. From the chief escort Guan Changhang to the ordinary escorts, they all use long swords. Because compared with swords, swords are more important for chopping and are easier to practice, so the escort agency will also recruit some young men with clean backgrounds and let the escorts teach them martial arts and cultivate them from a young age. After Guan Changhang held the broadsword, his whole momentum changed and he exuded a sharp sword intent. In Xia Changqing's view, it seemed that there were long swords in the void slashing at him. This made Xia Changqing unconsciously hold the hilt of the sword with his right hand, and there was also a sword intent on his body that was facing it from a distance. Guan Changhang's eyes lit up, and he suddenly became interested. Being able to meet a good opponent is like meeting a chess match and a general meeting a good talent, which makes people very happy. Good. Guan Changhang shouted. He couldn't wait, and without waiting to go to the martial arts training ground, he directly held the broadsword and chopped Xia Changqing's head with a move of splitting Huashan. Xia Changqing's eyes flashed with a sharp light, and he knew in his heart that this knife could not be blocked. The knife was heavy and good for chopping. With the dexterity of the sword, it was not suitable to confront the broadsword head-on. When Guan Changhang chopped in front of Xia Changqing, at the critical moment, Xia Changqing dodged sideways, then he pushed the sword guard with his left hand. The sharp sword came out of the sheath, and the hilt hit Guan Changhang's wrist. But who is Guan Changhang? He can be called one of the three heroes of Luoyang, and it is not a false reputation. After a knife chopped into the air, Guan Changhang's long sword turned back immediately. The heavy long sword, in his hand, seemed to be nothing, lifting a heavy weight with ease, extremely light and agile. Guan Changhang turned his wrist, the long sword turned sideways, and with a snap, he used the blade to slap Xia Changqing's long sword back. The attack followed one after another, and another knife chopped horizontally. Xia Changqing's hand shook, and the long sword in his hand flew up, blocking the path of the blade. His body moved forward, and the blade of the sword passed along the blade. Sparks flew out faintly, and Xia Changqing had already arrived in front of Guan Changhang. The long sword flew out of the scabbard completely, and slashed towards Guan Changhang's neck out of thin air. At the critical moment, Guan Changhang leaned on the ground with the sword, leaned back, and dodged the sword in the style of an iron bridge. The long sword circled in the air, and Xia Changqing stretched out his hand, and grasped the hilt. At the same time, Guan Changhang kicked forward with his right foot, like a scorpion swinging its tail, and a kick was about to kick Xia Changqing in the heart. Xia Changqing remained calm in the face of danger, threw away the scabbard, clenched his left fist, and punched Guan Changhang's calf from top to bottom. Bang! After a slight sound, Guan Changhang's scorpion tail was knocked off, but he also slid back with the force of the blow, avoiding Xia Changqing's next attack. Xia Changqing took advantage of the situation and rushed forward. Sword flowers bloomed from his hands, as if he wanted to cut Guan Changhang open. Guan Changhang's face showed madness, and the long sword in his hand danced wildly, forming a sword curtain in front of him, so that Xia Changqing's sword force could not penetrate. Ding ding ding, the crisp sound continued to ring, and Guan Changhang retreated step by step, which was unbelievable. Good boy, you actually kept a trick when fighting with me. Feng Biaotao muttered to himself. With his martial arts skills, his eyesight was naturally very strong. He could clearly see that the sword force displayed by Xia Changqing now was far stronger than when he fought with him. Feng Biaotao never expected that Xia Changqing actually kept a trick. On the field, Guan Changhang had been forced into a corner by Xia Changqing's continuous attacks. He was about to have no way to retreat, but Guan Changhang was Guan Changhang, far from being comparable to Feng Biaotao and the like. The chief escort Guan stepped lightly on the wall with his right foot, and the whole person rose directly from the ground and jumped over Xia Changqing's head. In the fluttering clothes, Xia Changqing suddenly saw a shimmering knife light coming towards him. Xia Changqing was shocked. He didn't expect Guan Changhang to be able to draw his knife in this situation. This knife came unexpectedly, like an antelope hanging its horns, leaving no trace. Xia Changqing turned his long sword, and a flash of sword light flashed across, and he stabbed the sky with the sword, as if he wanted to pierce a hole in the sky. Ding! With a barely detectable sound, Guan Changhang had already turned over, and landed behind Xia Changqing. Without any pause, he directly held the knife with both hands, and the knife light slashed towards Xia Changqing's waist and abdomen. Xia Changqing did not turn around, but as if he had eyes behind his head, he kept rotating his sword, and blocked all of Guan Changhang's attacks. The light of the sword and the light of the knife mixed together, flying all over the sky, and the sound of the collision of swords was endless. It was very surprising that the battle between Guan Changhang and Xia Changqing ended in a draw. There was no way, whether it was Xia Changqing or Guan Changhang, They had no way to break the other's defense. Even if they cut the other's clothes, it could be considered a better one. After the battle was over, Xia Changqing's performance really shocked everyone in the room. Well, although there were only 3 people, these 3 people were representatives of the senior staff of Changhang Escort Agency. Escort Feng opened his mouth slightly. He suddenly realized a problem. Xia Changqing and Chief Escort Guan could fight to a draw. Doesn't that mean that Xia Changqing is qualified to become an escort leader? Chapter 196 Night Banquet. Happy event. This is a great happy event. Guan Changhang stood in front of the hall, panting slightly, but still full of vigor. He laughed loudly and said, now that Master Xia has joined our Changhang Escort Agency, it can be said that we are even more powerful. Come on, let's have a banquet tonight to celebrate the arrival of Brother Xia. Guan Changhang, who had personally verified Xia Changqing's strength, naturally knew how abnormal Xia Changqing's martial arts were. Moreover, considering his current age, it was even more amazing that he could achieve this achievement. This made Guan Changhang think of his son, Guan Wei, who was called the young escort leader. With Wei's martial arts, he was far from being Xia Changqing's opponent. However, Guan Changhang did not feel daunted, nor was he afraid of the consequences of raising a tiger to cause trouble. Guan Changhang had the confidence. Since he was young, Guan Changhang had built Changhang Escort Agency, one of the 3 major forces in Luoyang, from scratch with his own strength. If he did not have some skills, he would have been devoured by the wolves and tigers surrounding him. Therefore, Guan Changhang held a very welcoming attitude towards Xia Changqing's arrival. The future of the escort agency needs the addition of fresh blood. As long as Xia Changqing is sincere and dedicated to the escort agency, Guan Changhang does not mind promising him a high position. With a wave of his hand, Guan Changhang directly asked his men to prepare and hold a banquet tonight to welcome Xia Changqing's joining. Changqing, it stands to reason that with your martial arts, even if you become the head of the escort, it is more than enough. But you have never had the experience of escorting before, and you may not be familiar with the escort business. Even if I'll let you become the head of the escort, I'm afraid that you can't do it well. But don't worry, during this period of time, you should follow the head of the escort Feng to learn our experience of escorting. When the time comes, I will promote you to the head of the escort. Guan Changhang tried to speak softly to Xia Changqing, fearing that he could not make Xia Changqing feel at ease. For talents, no matter where they go, they need to be valued. To the chief escort, I originally wanted to apply for the position of escort master. You are too kind. I know that becoming an escort master requires more than just martial arts. Okay, you are right to think so. Work hard, and Changhang Escort Agency will never treat you unfairly. Guan Changhang looked at Xia Changqing with joy. He liked this young man who was both capable and humble. But there was one thing that made Guan Changhang a little doubtful about Xia Changqing's origin. To be honest, Xia Changqing's accent showed that he was from Lu, but the fact that he met a master at a young age and learned a set of superb martial arts was like a story in a novel or a book. Could such a thing happen in reality? This was also what Guan Changhang was doubtful about, but after the battle just now, Guan Changhang did not see any familiar moves in Xia Changqing's swordsmanship. Nowadays, there are only a few sects in the martial arts world that are famous for their swordsmanship. Guan Changhang is very familiar with the martial arts of Wudang sect, Qianjian sect, and Qingcheng sect. He can be very sure that the swordsmanship used by Xia Changqing is not the swordsmanship of these sects. Could it be some unknown small sect? Although it is difficult to find a dragon in shallow water, it is not impossible. Think about it. Back then, the little shrimp hero who suddenly appeared was a martial arts legend with no sect or school. Until now, there are still many young people who admire little shrimp. This matter is temporarily suppressed in Guan Changhang's heart. Afterwards, he will naturally send someone to investigate the authenticity of what Xia Changqing said. Now, the important thing is not to chill Xia Changqing's heart. Changqing, let's go and sit together. Your martial arts are amazing, but I wonder if your alcohol tolerance is as great as your martial arts. Tonight, we must not leave until we are drunk. Guan Changhang put his arm around Xia Changqing's shoulders affectionately and took him to the first seat. This first seat was of course Guan Changhang's own. On his left sat the butler Mr. Liu. Even Feng, the head escort, had to sit below Mr. Liu. The seat on Guan Changhang's right was reserved for Xia Changqing. Come, Changqing, sit next to me. Guan Changhang's big hands firmly pressed Xia Changqing's shoulders and pressed him into the seat. Seating is a very particular matter. The fact that Xia Changqing became a bodyguard of Changhang Escort Agency was now known only to Guan Changhang, Feng, the head escort, and Mr. Liu. No, Zhu Xiaohua might have to be added. Other people in the escort agency, whether they were escort heads, bodyguards, or escorts, did not know about Xia Changqing's existence yet. They were also slightly surprised by Guan Changhang's sudden banquet. They didn't know what kind of happy event could make Guan Changhang spend so much. When they took their seats one after another and sat down in their seats according to their previous habits, they suddenly found Xia Changqing. It was already a surprising thing that a young man with such a young appearance suddenly appeared at the table of the senior executives of Changhang Escort Agency, not to mention that this person was sitting on the right hand side of the chief escort Guan Changhang. The seats at a table were originally very limited. Now that Xia Changqing occupied a seat, naturally one escort would have to leave this table. Invisibly, Xia Changqing had offended the escorts of Changhang Escort Agency before he even started working. Xia Changqing didn't know this now. Of course, even if he knew, he wouldn't care about such a thing. As the saying goes, those who are not envied are mediocre. Xia Changqing sat upright in his seat, with no sadness or joy on his face, allowing dozens of pairs of eyes in the hall to look back and forth at him. This kind of looking reached a peak when the banquet was about to begin. The only people who can sit at the same table with Guan Changhang are the escort chiefs and senior escort masters. There are only 3 escort chiefs in the entire Changhang Escort Agency, including Escort Chief Feng, all of whom are senior members of the escort agency. Below them are 7 escort masters, and the average age of the escort masters is about 30 years old. On weekdays, the only young person who can sit at this table is the young escort chief Guan Wei. Even the nephews and grandchildren of escort chief Feng have to start as porters. Now that Xia Changqing has suddenly appeared, how could he not arouse the curiosity of these people? Chief escort, who is this young hero? Please introduce him to us. An unknown escort chief said with a gleam in his eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately aroused a large number of responses. That's right, Chief Escort, please introduce him to us. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197, Secret Fight. Those who could speak up at the banquet were all escorts in the escort agency. Even within the Changhang Escort Agency, they represented different forces. Xia Changqing also took the opportunity to observe. After the unknown escort leader spoke up, there were 3 escorts who echoed him. Don't think that there is no power struggle in the Changhang Escort Agency. Wherever there is interest, there is struggle. If Xia Changqing guessed correctly, these 3 escort leaders are the 3 leaders in the Changhang Escort Agency. The struggle within the escort agency revolves around these 3. Of course, Xia Changqing will not forget Mr. Liu, the chief steward of internal affairs, who has been calm until now. Xia Changqing dared to guarantee that even these 3 escort leaders would not dare to provoke Mr. Liu, the chief steward, and his sudden joining, Xia Changqing, has aroused the vigilance of these people. They can't wait to know Xia Changqing's background. It seems that almost everyone has arrived, and with their escort leader asking questions, Guan Changhang laughed twice, attracting the attention of everyone in the room. Instantly, the whole hall became quiet, only Guan Changhang's laughter was still ringing. Guan Changhang stood up and stretched out his right hand, motioning Xia Changqing to stand up with him. After Xia Changqing stood up, Guan Changhang patted Xia Changqing's shoulder affectionately. Everyone, I solemnly introduce someone to you. This Xia Changqing next to me will be the 8th escort of our Changhang Escort Agency from today. In the surprised eyes of everyone, Guan Changhang continued, you may not know that Changqing's martial arts, even I can only tie at most. As soon as Guan Changhang said this, there was an uproar. Even before Guan Changhang finished speaking, there was already a lot of discussion below. In the hall, there was a table in the corner. On this table, there were two people holding different expressions, one with a look of surprise, and the other with a look of understanding. Xia, isn't this the young man we received in the afternoon? He said directly that he was here to apply for the position of escort. I laughed at him in my heart, but after a long time, he really succeeded. Zhu Xiaohe had a bitter smile on his face. He nodded slowly. Although he felt bad in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. Is the gap between people really that big? For a moment, Zhu Xiaohe's heart was a little confused. At the first table, Guan Changhang pulled Xia Changqing to sit down again, and the table was already lively. Of course, these people's doubts about Xia Changqing have not been eliminated. Even if Guan Changhang endorsed it, it would be impossible, because Xia Changqing's young appearance was too deceptive. Chief Escort, don't blame me, Old Li, for speaking bluntly. Can this young man's martial arts really tie with yours? The first person to ask about Xia Changqing's identity was this escort leader Li. At this time, he was sitting at the table, glancing at Xia Changqing with a sidelong look, with a look of disdain. Before Guan Changhang could say anything, Feng said coldly, "What's the matter, Lao Li? Now you don't even believe the chief escort's words? I think the position of chief escort should be given to you, Lao Li." It can be seen that Feng must be at odds with this Li. He said a few sarcastic words, which made Li's face change. Okay. Today is the first day that Xia Escort joined our Changhang Escort Agency, and you two made such a scene. What a shame. Guan Changhang patted the table to stop the two escorts who were about to fight over a disagreement, and then turned to Xia Changqing and said, "Changqing, I'm sorry to make you laugh. These are all a bunch of bad guys. When you get to know them for a long time, you will know that, although these people are bad guys, they are all good people." Xia Changqing didn't believe that Guan Changhang didn't see the scene of the two escorts fighting, or that Guan Changhang was also happy to see this scene. This situation of his subordinates fighting was very beneficial to his control over the escort agency. Next, Guan Changhang introduced Xia Changqing one by one. This is Li Ying, the escort leader. This person is the one who dislikes Xia Changqing and has a grudge with Feng Biaotao. Moreover, Xia Changqing suspected that the other party disliked him because he classified him as belonging to Feng Biaotao's faction. But this is not wrong. Xia Changqing was indeed recruited by Feng Biaotao, and it is natural for him to become his faction. This is Yudingsao, the escort leader. Yudingsao is a middle-aged man with a fair face and looks like a white-faced scholar. When Guan Changhang introduced him, Yudingsao smiled gently at Xia Changqing, releasing a certain amount of goodwill. Next are the 7 escorts. Xia Changqing looked around and thought to himself that these 7 people were a bit like the 7 good babies, and if he joined, wouldn't it become the 8 great kings? While Xia Changqing was thinking wildly, Guan Changhang had already introduced them one by one, and the banquet began to become lively. "Changqing, my son Guan Wei is now out escorting. When he comes back, I will let him meet you first. I believe you can become good friends." Guan Changhang patted Xia Changqing's shoulder and said affectionately. He intended to let Xia Changqing meet Guan Wei. How to say it, this is also for his son, so that he can have smooth sailing when he controls the escort agency in the future, and slowly build a team for him. I have heard of the heroic spirit of the young escort leader for a long time. It's a pity that I didn't see him today. Everyone carried the flowery sedan chair and said some beautiful words, which Xia Changqing was also good at. In general, with Guan Changhang present, the atmosphere at the wine table was still harmonious. The dishes were 5 flavors, and the wine was 3 rounds. Many people who had reached the limit of drinking had left, and the banquet gradually dispersed. At the first table, Guan Changhang was the first to leave. With him present, no one dared to leave first. Wouldn't that be giving him no face? After Guan Changhang left, escort leader Li threw down his chopsticks and said, "I'm full, let's go." After that, he left without paying attention to other people's reactions. The 3 escorts that Xia Changqing had observed looked at each other, clasped their fists to escort leader Feng and escort leader Yu, and left behind Li Ying. This Liang is getting more and more presumptuous, escort leader Feng said with an unpleasant expression. He and Liang had been at odds for a long time. This time he personally recruited a young talent, but he didn't expect Liang to be so disrespectful. Old Feng, you know what kind of personality old Li has. Don't be angry. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by young people? Escort leader Yuding Sao smiled apologetically at Xia Changqing. Changqing, can I call you Changqing? Chapter 198 Night. Will it be useful if I say no? You've already called him that. Xia Changqing looked at Yuding Sao and Yu Biao Tao speechlessly. These people were just being hypocritical. They had clearly done so, but they still had to ask the person concerned what he thought. Yu Biao Tao, you are the senior, and I'm just a junior. Of course, you can call me whatever you want. Xia Changqing said indifferently. Yuding Sao seemed not to hear the sarcasm in Xia Changqing's words. He smiled and said, then I won't be polite. Changqing, you are so young, but you have mastered such a good martial art. I wonder which school or sect you learned from? Oh, this is a way to find out about his situation. I'm a man from the mountains and wilds. I was lucky enough to have some adventures when I was young. It's not worth mentioning, Xia Changqing said perfunctorily. To be honest, he had no interest in such intrigues, especially in such small sects. If he had the time, he might as well go home and sleep early. Xia Changqing thought so and did so. He stood up from his chair without waiting for Yuding Sao to finish his words. He clasped his fists and said, everyone, we have drunk enough wine today. There will be plenty of time for you to get close to each other in the future. I will take my leave first. If you are not satisfied yet, please enjoy your meal. After Xia Changqing finished speaking, he did not wait for the reactions of the people present and left Changhang Escort Agency leisurely. Looking at Xia Changqing's leaving figure, the remaining escorts all looked at each other. They carefully glanced at Yuding Sao's face. This escort leader who was directly ignored, no matter how well mannered he was, couldn't help but look a little ugly at this moment. Suddenly, escort leader Feng laughed. Xia Changqing's maverick behavior made him very satisfied. The competition within the escort agency was also very fierce, and Xia Changqing was introduced by him. Under such circumstances, Yuding Sao still wanted to get close to Xia Changqing, so escort leader Feng was naturally not happy. Now that Yuding Sao was humiliated, Feng Biao Tao's mood suddenly turned from cloudy to sunny. It's normal for young people to be arrogant. When I was young, I was much more arrogant than him. Don't mind it, everyone. Come, have a drink. Although Feng Biao Tao greeted them in a pretentious manner, Yuding Sao, who was embarrassed like this, was in no mood to drink. He snorted coldly and left the table. Among the remaining 4 escorts, 2 more stood up and followed Yu Biao Tao out of the hall. Now, there were only 3 people left at the head table. Feng Biao Tao hummed a little tune and smacked his lips happily. Among the people present today, he was the happiest in his heart. Captain, I think Xia Changqing is not a good person to get along with, since he doesn't give face to Captain Yu. I'd be more worried if he talked to Yuding Sao with a smile. Captain Feng said indifferently, as I said before, young people, relying on their martial arts skills, there's nothing wrong with being a little arrogant. I'm not afraid to tell you that boy's martial arts skills are not even as good as mine. How is this possible? The 2 trusted escorts of Captain Feng looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. How old is he? Even if he is a genius, how can he be as good as you? What's impossible? Didn't you 2 hear what the chief escort said just now? He can fight the chief escort to a draw. I saw it with my own eyes. Captain Feng put down the cup angrily. On the surface, he was teaching his 2 trusted men a lesson for daring to question his words. In fact, in his heart, Captain Feng was also shouting that Xia Changqing was too evil. Captain Feng, since this boy's martial arts skills are so high, will he ever think of starting his own business? As the 2 escorts are from Captain Feng's faction, they must be thinking about their faction. You 2 are too petty. Even if that kid starts a new business, do you think Yuding Sao and Liang will agree? And looking at the attitude of the chief escort tonight, it seems that he wants to focus on training that kid. So, we must never offend that kid, and we should make friends with him as much as possible. Escort Chief Feng sighed, revealing a rare look of resentment. Damn it. God is too unfair. That kid has such martial arts at such a young age. In another 2 years, won't he be a big name in the entire martial arts world? Not necessarily. Nowadays, there are not many geniuses who die young. Who knows what he will be like in the future? Be careful with your words. Escort Chief Feng scolded in a low voice, but young people still have to go through some realistic torture before they can truly become successful. Escort Chief Feng thought of Guan Changhang assigning Xia Changqing to him to teach him escort experience. This is a good opportunity. Xia Changqing didn't know what happened at the dinner after he left. To be honest, he wasn't interested in paying attention to it. After leaving Changhang Escort Agency, Xia Changqing used his internal strength to force out all the wine he had just drunk at the banquet from his fingers. Amid the sound of dripping, a scent of wine filled Xia Changqing's surroundings. This method was something Xia Changqing remembered when he saw a scene in Qian Long Babu when Duan Yu and Kaio Feng were drinking. He tried it himself and it actually worked. Although there was a factor of cheating with magic, if this trick was seen by Guan Changhang and others, their evaluation of Xia Changqing would be even higher. Xia Changqing frowned and used his sleeves to disperse the alcohol around him. Then he slowly followed his memories of the day and headed towards the east of the city. From the west to the east of the city, it was a long distance, and Xia Changqing was fortunate enough to see the nightlife of Luoyang City. Unlike what one might imagine, there is no curfew in Luoyang at night. Under the red lanterns, there is a bustling night market. Xia Changqing walked on the street, passing by pedestrians coming and going. He felt a sense of loneliness for no reason, which made him feel like he was looking back and saw that person at the end of the street. He stopped and walked along the way, and the special snacks and strange gadgets opened Xia Changqing's eyes. He lingered in them and forgot everything else. No vendor showed any fear because Xia Changqing was holding a sword. Compared with the people in the East District, these vendors who could still set up stalls at night were undoubtedly more daring. This also allowed Xia Changqing to have a good shopping experience without any disappointment. Chapter 199 Broken Finger. At this time, the weather in Luoyang was still a little cold after the night fell. Walking on the street, there was a cold wind blowing from time to time, and the chill was bone-chilling. However, the nightlife had just begun, and the people in Luoyang showed great enthusiasm. No one cared about the cold wind. They lingered in the dim lights, enjoying the prosperous atmosphere. Xia Changqing was walking, and suddenly felt a little hungry. Just now in Changhang Escort Agency, he didn't eat much food at all, and he was not in the mood to eat in that situation. Just at this moment, his eyes swept over a wonton stall on the street. Xia Changqing walked over, and a fragrance that hit his face successfully aroused his greed. The stall owner smiled and asked Xia Changqing who was approaching, "Customer, do you want a bowl of wonton?" "Old man, how much is a bowl of wonton?" Xia Changqing sniffed lightly, and the soup base seemed to be chicken soup. "Only 5 cents a bowl." "Then give me a bowl." Xia Changqing sat nearby and turned to look at the stall owner. "Okay. Please wait a moment." The old man agreed, and then he brought out a wooden basin of meat stuffing and a stack of wonton wrappers very quickly. At one end of the shoulder pole was a burning stove, and in the big pot on the stove, chicken soup was boiling. At the other end of the pole, the old man had set up a small table. He held the wonton wrapper in one hand and the stuffing in the other. He just pinched it and threw a wonton into the bowl. In just 2 minutes, a full bowl of wontons was freshly baked. The old man picked up the bowl and threw the wontons into the boiling chicken soup. The wontons were rolled 3 times in the chicken soup, and then the old man served them up. With the chicken soup, although there were no other ingredients, the taste was particularly delicious. Xia Changqing drank up the chicken soup in the bowl, and then put down the bowl with satisfaction, and gave the old man a thumbs up. "Uncle, your wontons are delicious." The wonton seller smiled brightly, his whole face squeezed together like a blooming chrysanthemum. Thank you, as long as the customers like it." Xia Changqing took out 5 coins from his pocket with satisfaction and put them on the small table set up on the street. Just as he was about to get up and leave, he suddenly heard a burst of commotion in the distance. This made Xia Changqing pause, and he looked towards the source of the commotion in confusion. Only a dozen meters away from him, tourists and pedestrians who were walking normally suddenly heard 2 screams. "Get out!" A rough voice suddenly came out, and the two words "get out" were full of hostility and murderous intent. Then, under the gaze of all the pedestrians, the two people who were chosen as the target of the "get out" were like rags and sacks. They drew a beautiful arc in the air, flew 5 or 6 meters away, and fell heavily to the ground. Soon, a large amount of blood seeped out from under the two people. Such a violent scene made the crowd even more chaotic. Pedestrians rushed to the sides of the road. Soon, the instigator of this incident was exposed. It was a middle-aged man with a short and strong figure, wearing a tight suit. One eye seemed to be broken, leaving only one eye outside, making his appearance more ferocious. "Get out of here, if you don't want to die," the one-eyed dragon roared, and ran towards the direction where Xia Changqing was. The old man who was originally standing next to Xia Changqing had already trembled and hid behind the stall. Xia Changqing sighed softly. If he was not mistaken, the two pedestrians who were beaten and flew away were already dead, which made him unable to turn a blind eye. Xia Changqing didn't know who this person was, but no matter who he was, Xia Changqing would not let him leave so easily. After killing two innocent passers-by, Xia Changqing flicked his finger, and the scabbard in his hand flew out, like a sharp sword, hitting the knee of the one-eyed dragon who was running towards him. The one-eyed dragon screamed, his knees softened, and he fell to the ground, but his forward momentum had not stopped, which made him slide forward 5 or 6 meters on his knees. This distance was exactly the same as the distance the two innocent passers-by who were knocked away by him flew in the air. However, the one-eyed dragon was a martial artist after all. Unlike ordinary passers-by, he had martial arts skills. Just sliding his knees did not make him lose his ability to move, but he immediately cursed, "Which bastard dared to plot against your grandfather?" Xia Changqing looked indifferent, as if he did not hear the one-eyed dragons shouting and cursing. He held the sword and slowly came to the side of the one-eyed dragon. At this time, the one-eyed dragon also recovered from the pain of being hit on the knee, and he naturally noticed Xia Changqing's arrival. "Little pretty boy, you dare to plot against me? You're looking for death." While the one-eyed dragon was cursing, his hands had already stretched out like lightning, like a poisonous snake coming out of a hole, or a black tiger digging out its heart, heading straight for Xia Changqing's chest and abdomen. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and the long sword in Xia Changqing's hand flashed a sharp sword light from top to bottom. A heart-wrenching scream rang out, and the one-eyed dragon fell to the ground, hugging his palms, and kept crying out in pain. "My hand. My hand." At this time, the one-eyed dragon's hands were only left with a bare palm, and all his fingers were cut off by Xia Changqing's sword. 10 fingers fell in front of the one-eyed dragon, but he was no longer in the mood to pay attention to them. 10 fingers are connected to the heart, and the one-eyed dragon did not faint directly after having all 10 fingers cut off, which showed that he was determined. But at this time, being determined is really not a good thing. Xia Changqing stood leisurely with his sword in hand. Cutting off the 10 fingers of the one-eyed dragon was just a punishment for him in the early stage. People who casually take human lives like this should be put to death. Everyone, can anyone help to inform the Yamen runners that there has been a murder here? However, what Xia Changqing did not expect was that as soon as he finished speaking, a voice responded to him. "No need." With the voice, the crowd of onlookers was suddenly separated, and a group of constables in uniform came over. As for how Xia Changqing knew that these people were constables, this was obvious, but the timing of these constables' arrival was too coincidental. "I just subdued this vicious guy, and you just happened to show up." The leading constable was tall, with a frown on his upright face. He clasped his fists and saluted Xia Changqing. "I'm Shi Gang, the chief constable of Luoyang City. Thank you for your help, young man." Chapter 200 Shi Gang. After the arrival of the detectives, the chaotic scene slowly calmed down. However, the two unlucky passers-by who were injured by the one-eyed dragon were not so lucky. Although Shi Gang had arranged for the detectives to send the two injured to the hospital as soon as possible, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the two people could not be saved. "Thank you for your help, young man. If we let this Qiu get away, we Luoyang detectives will lose face." Xia Changqing also clasped his fists. His tone was still calm, and even with some regret, "I still acted too late. Otherwise the two people would not have been injured by this man. Young man, don't take it to heart. This matter is the fault of this evil villain Qiu Bei, and it has nothing to do with you. If you hadn't taken action, who knows how many more people would have been injured by this villain. Xi Gang comforted Xia Changqing and said, by the way, I haven't asked you your full name yet? Oh, my surname is Xia, and my name is Changqing. Captain Xi, you can just call me Changqing. As the chief constable of the city, although Xia Changqing has no need to make friends with Xi Gang, he also has no need to offend him. It turns out to be Brother Changqing. A thoughtful look flashed in Xi Gang's eyes. Brother Changqing, have you just arrived in Luoyang City? Why do you ask, Chief Constable Xi? Haha, to be honest with you, Brother Changqing, in this huge city of Luoyang, there is no one in the martial arts world that I don't know. If someone with great martial arts skills like Brother Changqing had been in Luoyang City earlier, I would definitely have made friends with you a long time ago. Invisibly, Xi Gang praised Xia Changqing again. If this was a young boy who had just started out, he would have been secretly happy in his heart. If there were data to show this, his favorability towards Xi Gang would definitely be rising. But unfortunately, Xia Changqing is no longer the boy he used to be, and naturally he would not be naive enough to think that Xi Gang really thinks so. Given the situation in this world, a public official like Xi Gang is actually helpless against some martial arts masters with high martial arts skills. Just like tonight, a character like Qiu Bei, who is not even a third-rate character, has already made the detectives in Luoyang City run around in a hurry. If Xia Changqing hadn't taken action tonight, Xi Gang and others might have been able to catch Qiu Bei, but who knows how many innocent passers-by would have been affected. Captain Xi guessed correctly. I did arrive in Luoyang City recently. Oh. Brother Changqing, do you have a place to stay? If not, why don't you stay at my place first? You don't have to refuse. I'm alone too, and I have enough place for you to stay. Xi Gang was very enthusiastic and tried his best to invite Xia Changqing to his residence. The reason why Xi Gang was so enthusiastic was nothing more than that Xia Changqing was an outsider and did not belong to any force in Luoyang City. Moreover, judging from his actions to stop Qiu Bei, he was a passionate young man with justice in his heart. For such a person, what are you waiting for? If you don't make friends with him quickly? I appreciate Captain Xi's kindness, but I have already rented a small courtyard in the east of the city, so I won't bother Captain Xi. Xia Changqing declined. This is not a disturbance, but since you have a place to live, I won't force you. If you are free tomorrow, I will invite you out for a drink. No matter what, I have to thank you for helping us catch Qiu Bei. Xi Gang did not give up easily. The excuse of thanking for the wine was indeed a good excuse. But Xia Changqing still shook his head. No need to drink. Now I have found a job as a bodyguard from Changhang Escort Agency, and I have to report to the escort agency tomorrow. Ah. Xi Gang was surprised. Brother Changqing is already a bodyguard of Changhang Escort Agency? As one of the three major forces in Luoyang City, Xi Gang still had concerns about Changhang Escort Agency, but the skill that Xia Changqing showed just now made Xi Gang quite excited. If such a master could be brought to their yamen, it would be a great improvement for the overall strength of the constables. It was just that the idea of prying Changhang Escort Agency's wall made Xi Gang retreat again. He didn't need to provoke a conflict with Changhang Escort Agency for one person. However, if Xia Changqing himself wanted to do this, then it would have nothing to do with him. Xi Gang. It doesn't matter. As long as you don't escort, you will definitely have time in the evening. I will wait for you in front of Changhang Escort Agency. Let's make it a deal. I still have to deal with Qiu Bei's matter, so I'll take my leave now. After Xi Gang finished speaking in one breath, he clasped his fists and ran away without waiting for Xia Changqing to object. Xia Changqing opened his mouth to speak, but Xi Gang didn't give him the chance. Forget it. Forget it. It's a good thing to be on good terms with the constables in Luoyang City. If Xi Gang is really waiting at the door of the escort agency tomorrow night, he will go to the banquet. Shaking his head, Xia Changqing made up his mind. He looked around and found that the crowd had dispersed at this time, as if what had just happened was just like a dream. It was just that the old man selling wontons looked at him with a look of shrinking, which made Xia Changqing sigh in his heart. He shook his head, turned and left the street, and walked towards the East District. There were really too many things happening today, so Xia Changqing, who had just crossed over, had a relatively fulfilling day. Slowly leaving the brightly lit streets, Xia Changqing stepped into the scope of the East District. Compared to the prosperity just now, the East City at this time is already dark and silent. Xia Changqing can only grope forward little by little, accompanied by the starlight. Fortunately, his memory is good and his eyesight is even better, so he didn't find the wrong door. Pushing open the unlocked wooden door, Xia Changqing almost forgot that he asked Aunt Wan to find someone to clean the yard and buy some furniture during the day. When Xia Changqing pushed open the door, he was not disappointed. The yard had been cleaned up. Is it Brother Xia who is back? Xia Changqing had already heard the footsteps. Before Aunt Wang spoke, he had turned his head to look at the door. Aunt Wang, I'm sorry, did I disturb your rest? Xia Changqing said softly. It's okay, it's okay. Changqing, why are you back so late? I thought you couldn't find the way back. Aunt Wan held the lantern in one hand, and when she saw Xia Changqing's face clearly, she breathed a sigh of relief. I'm sorry to have worried you, Aunt Wan. I applied for a bodyguard position in the Changhang Escort Agency, but Chief Escort Guan kept me in the agency and had a few more drinks, which delayed my return. Xia Changqing explained patiently. He could clearly feel Aunt Wang's concern, and Xia Changqing would not destroy this concern. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.